Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Hello again, hockey fans. Are you ready to brave the wild? With me, your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Brave the Wild is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podaman, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Double Twist. Thank you always for downloading and listening to the show. Not to mention Amazon Music, as well as a new application now that you can listen to this show on. Thank you for joining me today, as we will jump into our annual season preview. Seems like yesterday we did the draft review and free agency. Well, I guess it was a little while. That show did outstanding, as they'd say in Canada. Did really well. So really appreciate the listenership and all that for that one. Did the annual Thanksgiving show. Of course, that one didn't do as well as the free agency one. Those usually do super well, along with the State of the Wild. Sometimes, and hopefully oftentimes, the annual season preview show does well also, and hopefully this one continues the trend. Of course, lots of new Wild shows keep popping up, which is fine. It is what it is. What am I going to do, right? So all we can do is hope to be friends and shout out to each other, reach out to each other, and keep building this hockey community in the upper Midwest. It's a great thing. Hockey season will happen. The labor dispute is over. Hallelujah, amen. Minnesota Wild roster is set except for Matt Zuccarello.
Bull crap, buddy boy.
As Matt Zuccarello will miss an extended period of time. That's basically the conversation. You know how injuries are. Extended time with an arm injury, basically. Upper body injury. It's his arm. And he had to have surgery, and he's going to be out for an extended period. So, okay, well, it is what it is. No move clause, $6 million a year, and yeah, yada, 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 yada. Well, we have our divisions and everything. We will play in our building again, which is nice. It won't be quite a bubble, but it'll be a bubble in terms of divisions where we'll only play the same teams over and over and over and over and over. Some people are not too happy because we're playing a lot of Western teams, like as in like West Coast type teams, or Southwest, the Southwest of Las Vegas, stuff like that. Let's look at the different divisions for fun here real quick. The North Division, gotta love that classic Calgary logo there. Calgary, Edmonton, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Vancouver, and Winnipeg. So, of course, that's the all-Canadian Division A. So it sounds like 4 Canadian teams will be in the playoffs this year, which that's good. I think Canada in the playoffs is a good thing. For people that were celebrating that not one Canada team made the playoffs a few years ago, they were celebrating that. I don't know. Is that good? I think it's better if there's at least 1 or 2. Come on. Central Division, which should feature the Wild, but it doesn't. It just doesn't because Carolina's got to be in there. Because there's like 99 East Coast teams. That's why. Tampa Bay, Florida. I mean, all these. There's multiple teams you think they're in the Central Division. Yeah, they're in the Central Division. And of course, I'll say ours last. We're the West Division. Central Division. Carolina, Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Detroit, Florida, Nashville, and Tampa Bay. So the 2 Stanley Cup finalists will be in the same division, at least for this odd 2020, 21, 21 regular season. That's going to be fun. That's never happened before. Of course, the NHL has rearranged the divisions before. Remember, the North Stars way back in the day used to be in the same division as Boston, used to be in the same division as Montreal, same division as Toronto not that long ago in the early 90s. Okay, that was a while ago. For the young pups out there, none of them were born yet, but like pretty much except for Justin Bakke of the Sound the Foghorn podcast. He was born for sure, but still super young. Justin Bakke. I kept saying Bakke, and then in the early days I said Justin Back. So, oh, Justin. He is like the nicest guy ever, and I keep mispronouncing his name. Of course, I know he probably Yep, me and him can relate. I mean, we used to get phone calls. You know, the Awajan family, Awajan, that's our last name. That's how it's pronounced. Can I speak to George Awajini? George Awajini? George Awajane? That's a real common one. Oh, my God, it got really old. But it is what it is. And, hell, it's Awajan and Joey Awajan, Justin Bakke. And I'd like to have Justin Bakke on this show sometime. That'd be cool. He was on the Soda Pod recently. Gosh, he was featured in a Michael Russo article, the Soda Pod, where Isha reminds you he's Canadian every 15 seconds. You know, being a Canadian, being a Canadian, I like this. And being a Canadian, I know this. And okay, we know. No, I love him, though. I'm just teasing. But no, I had to get off on that, I guess. Central, again, though, it's just crazy. Tampa Bay, Florida, and Columbus, Teal, and Carolina. But that's how it is, because there's like 9 billion Eastern teams, so that's how it goes. That's why they're in the Eastern Conference. It's like a whole conference in one right there. Eastern Division, Boston, Buffalo, New Jersey, New York Islanders, New York Rangers. No, I'm just kidding. Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Washington. So there you go. Washington and Pittsburgh can beat up on each other some more. It's adorable. So your Western Division features the Anaheim Clucks, or Schmucks. I'll call them the Schmucks, the Anaheim Ducks, the Arizona Coyotes, the Colorado Avalanches, Los Angeles Kings, San Jose Sharks, St. Louis Blues. So that's about it. I mean, how many teams from our division are with us? I guess Colorado and St. Louis. San Jose Sharks I just mentioned, and the Vegas Golden Knights, which I'm going to enjoy playing more frequently. I think that's cool. I love the Golden Knights, and I love the way the Wild play against the Golden Knights. But yes, the final team in the Western Division is the Minnesota Wild. Yes, I just saved the best for last because we're going to win the division. No, according to NHL Network guys, one of them had the Wild finishing 6th, the other had the Wild finishing 4th. So okay, hopefully 4th, because that means we'll probably make the playoffs, God willing. The way things shape up, we probably will make the playoffs and make things quite interesting. So we'll see how that goes. Looking forward to playing these teams about 8 times this year each, I guess. We won't be seeing any of the other teams until the postseason, I suppose. And we'll see. And that would we'd have to get out of the... I believe we'd have to get to the conference and Stanley Cup final to ever play them. So, yeah. Well, looking forward to playing those teams then. I hope. Yeah, I hope. Oh, man. I really hope so. Minnesota Wild roster and such. So... couple of things to talk about as well now as we head into the Minnesota Wild 2020-21 season. Derek Felska locally writes for the, he created the Crease and Assist blog. It's called the Daily Face-Off, is like the parent blogging, just kind of like I write for Gone Puck Wild. And their parent thing is the is Fansided. So Fansided is the parent company, the main, like the Athletic, the main publication. Gone Puck Wild is the Minnesota Wild section, and then I'm just Joey, basically, and I do Brave the Wild independently, where Derek Felska does, he does Crease and Assist independently, but with the Daily Face-Off, with the Sports Daily. Now I'm talking about the Daily Face-Off because I'm looking right at it, Sports Daily. The Daily Face-Off is where I'm going for the conversation about the lines and such, because obviously the lines are getting shuffled again because Matt Zuccarello's not going to play. So things get complicated again. Isn't that great? Things just get complicated again. It's okay. Everything's fine. Knock on wood. Yeah, well, it's okay. I don't know, that guy. Well, the hope is that, the talk is anyway, that he had an arm injury lingering into last season, and that's the same arm injury that he's getting, that he had surgery on, this and that. So maybe that's a strong possibility why he had such a mediocre year last year. Talk to me about sore arms and injuries and such and trying to play hockey. It's, let's just say I kind of had a very sad attempt at playing a little hockey, and I didn't fare too well. And it wasn't real necessarily. It's just practicing, I kind of sucked. It's good stuff. So, at least I'm the host of Brave the Wild and not trying to be a top line right winger, basically, which is what I'd love to be if I was a NHL player, but I'd be on the right side. But no, Derek Felska wrote an article recently. Of course, the super recent one, he included a lot of us writers and podcasters and others, his friends and such. Pretty cool, like questionnaire, starting out the season. Really cool stuff. Encourage you to check that out. But before that, around Thanksgiving or so, a little bit around there, he wrote an article about the Wild rebranding itself, because now you got this fancy new, third jersey, at least for this year, hopefully for years to come, where it looks like the 1978 North Stars. What I failed to mention on the last episode when I talked about the new jersey and everything, where you got the 78 North Star look, I kept thinking, well, it looks more like the early 80s and this and that, but it's the numbers that really tell you it's 1978, the numbers. So it looks really cool, like Parisi or whoever. Probably the top selling, I got to think, is Kirill Kaprizov, followed by Kevin Fiala. I don't think Parisi is the top seller, but he's probably one of the third or fourth, just because it's Zach Parisi. But I got to think Fiala is like second, and Kaprizov is like number one with a bullet in the jersey sales. But it's the numbers and this and that. But what Derek Felska wanted to talk about before I officially get into the preview of the team is rebranding the franchise in terms of having the colors become permanently with the North Stars. At least give it a shot, those North Star colors. At least giving it a shot, because teams have rebranded their product before, where maybe you keep the same logo, you change the colors, or you change the logos and the colors. Like the New York Islanders did that. That didn't work out so hot. It looked kind of weird, this and that. But this is different. It's the Minnesota North Stars, and, not everybody likes the quote-unquote Christmas colors. I think they're just fine. But the North Star ones are better. I just think the North Star ones are even better. Christmas colors are fine. And if you're offended by Christmas, I don't know. Maybe we won't get along so well. We don't have to hate each other, but we won't get along as well as we might, I guess we'll say. North Star colors, though, to me, have a special place in my heart and always will. The black jerseys were cool for a bit. They had their time, but unfortunately the premise behind the creation of those jerseys and that new logo and that rebranding was not a good thing. It was quote unquote evil. If you're a North Star fan, it was a very evil thing. It was a very ominous premise behind the creation of that logo and jerseys, because they were going to be moved to a different city. Unfortunately, little did we know, but apparently a lot of the insiders had a really big clue. Like, here we go. This bastard's going to try to move this team, and sure he did. Mr. Greed himself, Mr. Norm Green. But no, I do agree with the possibility of rebranding the product, and I'm looking to write a similar article to what Derek Felska wrote. I'm looking to write something similar with my own, point of view, my own perspective, from my own perspective, because obviously people have different points of view. Obviously his were outstanding. It'll be very similar, just me writing it in my own way, I guess, and my own perspective of it, per se. I think the Wild should do that. I think the Wild should look to do a rebrand, especially now, especially with Bill Guerin, with the way he's changing the roster significantly. And now you got guys like Kirill Kaprizov, Kevin Fiala leading the way. Marco Rossi, which I haven't even mentioned yet, who's in the World Juniors right now for Austria. Very cool stuff. Matt Boldy's in the World Juniors for the United States. Gotta love that. The Boston College guy, who's playing absolutely spectacular this year. We'll probably get to him a tiny bit as well. But I think rebranding the product is not the worst idea ever. You keep the same logo, even. You even keep the same logo, at least in some instances, depending on what people think about in the future. I actually got the hat. I thought it was sitting next to me, but it's not. That's a shame. It's way over there. Bummer. But, yeah, I got one of the hats with the North Star colors, Wild, blah, 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 retro reversed, all that. I think it's absolutely great. And I think the Wild should consider looking to do something like this on a permanent basis. I agree in a big way, and I think the fans would embrace it in a big way. I truly do. It just wouldn't hurt this franchise at all. My personal belief is that Marco Rossi will find a way to make this roster at the end of the day. But if he doesn't, the current lines, at least according to the Daily Faceoff, would have Marcus Johansson at the center for the top line, Kirill Kaprizov on the left wing, Kevin Fiala on the right wing, Joel Erikssonek as the second line center, Jordan Greenway left wing, Zach Parisi right wing. That's kind of playing out of position, but he's done it many times in the past. That would have been Zuccarello, possibly. Gosh, I don't know. That's a tough one, isn't it? It's a tough situation. Zuccarello doesn't belong on the second line anyway, but then again, maybe, I don't know. Both guys are getting paid a ton of money, and both guys you want production out of. I was a bit terrified with how Zach Parisi played in the summer and I've mentioned it on multiple articles and multiple podcast episodes. And I did write a Gone Puck Wild article not too long ago talking about the possibility of the Wild finally having the first ever true top line should Marco Rossi be able to center Kaprizov and Fiala someday on a permanent basis, or at least an extended basis, because no lines stay together forever. They get broke up, they get moved around, shuffled a bit, but they stay in the top six. It's a pretty exciting possibility, though, should things head that direction. Parisi right wing, of course, on this shuffled line setup. Nick Bonino, the third line center. Nico Sturm would play on the left wing instead of fourth line center because of the situation. Nick Bukestad would play on the right wing. Centering the fourth line would be everyone's favorite Victor Rask. That's how he talks in his interviews. Victor Rask. I don't hate him. I don't. He's not a good skater, but he's a pretty solid, he's okay. He's not worth $4 million a year, but I do not hate Victor Rask. I wish he was getting paid $2 million a year. Then nobody'd complain about him, really. $2 million a year? Because Foligno's making about $3 million, and he's not that great. He's a good leader. He's got skill, but he doesn't show up every day in terms of the box score. He's not putting the puck in the net every couple games. So, I mean, he's about a 20 to 30 point guy. And I think Rask is about the same if you played full time. We'll see what happens. Foligno on the left wing with Victor Rask and Orion Hartman, the right winger, in the on the fourth line there. The defensive pairing, Suter and Spurgeon. Suter left, Spurgeon right. Jonas Brodin left, Matthew Dumba right on the second pairing. Third pairing, Carson Soucy, Brad Hunt. Come on, man, not Brad Hunt again. On the right wing. Coolest guy in the world. Everybody loves him to death. Bemidji State, one of the coolest dudes ever. He'd give you the shirt off his back if you needed it, that type of thing. He's one of those kind of guys. Not that I've met anybody, basically, but I've met people, but it was many years ago. The older Wild players like Brunette and such. But that doesn't mean he has to. That doesn't mean there isn't a better option per se in the system that could be on the right wing or right defensive side, right defensive pairing. I keep talking about Belpedio, man. I want to see Belpedio get a crack at that third pairing because I think that's kind of his role in the NHL, unfortunately. Maybe second pairing is his absolute ceiling. We'll see because, I don't think Addison is going to be on any third pairing. I think he's second or first long term, which could mean the trade of Matthew Dumba coming up in the next year or so to make room for Cam Addison. But, of course, those days are not quite here yet. So we'll let that kind of we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Goaltender Cameron Talbot, and of course no Alex Stalock either. He's going to be out for a bit. Andrew Hammond has been signed for at least a 1-year ditty. The Hamburglar returns to at least be the Iowa goaltender like he was a couple years back. Poor guy never suited up for the Minnesota Wild, only Iowa, and that would mean Capo Kakinen, everybody's favorite goalie, will at least be the backup for Cam Talbot, who I do think will have a very good season for the Minnesota Wild. I'm actually intrigued by the addition of Cam Talbot quite a bit. I like what he brings to the Minnesota Wild. I'm happy about it. A lot of my friends and colleagues in the podcasting and writing world for the Minnesota Wild aren't huge fans of it. Some people like it more than others. We'll see what happens. I just call him Cam Addison. It's Kalen Addison at the end of the day. I don't know why I just said Cam. But I'm getting too much football on the mind here. There's too many Cams in football. Cam Dantzler, Cam Newton. It's Kalen Addison. I called him Cam, and I apologize for that. I know it's Kalen, but my voice said Cam. Have you ever had that happen? So I apologize for that. It's one of those type of things. Too much Cams in the world right now. There's another Cam basketball player for Atlanta that's getting better. But we'll leave that for Timberwolves Explosion. That show had a season preview about a week ago. That's doing pretty well, actually. Pretty well. Despite the Wolves not off to a spectacular start the last, 50 years, it seems like. It's the roster is encouraging. Of course, there's Band-Aids. Like Marcus Johansson right now is a Band-Aid top-line center. He's not a full-time top-line center. Not sure what his long-term future is going to be with the Minnesota Wild. He is a free agent at the end of the year. Joel Eriksson Ek is a restricted free agent at the end of the year. Nick Bonino is a free agent at the end of the year. You notice a trend? Kirill Kaprizov. Well, he's hitting free agency, but it's not unrestricted free agency. He's very restricted, so he's still our guy. And God willing, we'll be able to get things hammered out very, very soon. Hopefully not for too much money, like a bridge contract per se, but still at a significant raise, though. So it won't be like he's insulted and on his way out after the bridge contract is over. It'll be a bridge to nowhere, kind of like what they do in cities like San Francisco, bridge to nowhere, just to make money off of the taxpayers, that's all. Or Minneapolis for a minute there until they built the stadium. There was a skyway to nowhere, and I kept thinking, where's this skyway going to? And this was at least 4 years before any stadium project was approved. Think about that. So it was obvious there was a plan that skyway was going to go to something. I still remember that very well. Some little voice in my head said, that's going to be for the baseball stadium. And boy, maybe I wasn't just hearing things, huh? But no, lots of free agents. Nick Bjugstad, I don't think the Wild are going to wind up keeping him. That was part of the questionnaire from Derek Felska. I don't think the Wild will keep Nick Bjugstad. That's just my guess. Maybe he has an awesome year. I hope so. The guy hasn't stayed healthy. That's the problem. So I'm not overly optimistic about that. I'm really not. But that's with the forward situation. I mean, one guy after another. Marcus Foligno, I believe he's an unrestricted free agent as well. It kind of depends on who the Wild name as captain, because there is no captain yet. And we're still waiting on that. How much longer are we going to wait? There have been talk about Zach Parise getting it. If Mr. Bill Guerin doesn't want to have the quote-unquote country club atmosphere, I don't think Suter or Parise should be captain. I don't think so. The only problem is they'd still have the alternate. It's a tough situation. Suter's a strange guy. He's extremely talented. He's extremely good at what he does. But there's a side of him that says he is just a little too comfortable, and he's the kind of guy that if you try to challenge him, he basically is like, what the hell are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it, biatch, basically? What are you going to do? I'm making this much, and I'm here for this many more years. What are you going to do about it? And that's pretty much all it was with Mike Yeo forever, unfortunately, and it may have continued with our buddy Boudreau. So, I don't know. Parise, I don't know if he's as bad that way. I don't think I'd want Ryan Suter to be captain. I think he has enough power already. I think Ryan Suter has enough power already. Let's just leave it at that, huh? I mean, read between the lines, guys and gals. Read between the lines with Ryan Suter about how much power he has. Zach Parise, though, yeah, he probably has a little too much power as well, but it's not as obvious as it is with Ryan Suter. He might as well be out golfing in that blizzard I'm watching right now. I don't know, Ryan Suter. Oh, boy. I agree with him politically. At least I think I do. Yeah, from all indications. Maybe not on everything, but that's about it. Me and Ryan Suter are like strangers on a deserted island when it comes to politics in this area. We'll just leave that as is. Zach Parise, you could probably read between the lines there too. Zach Parise, his drop-off last summer scared the crap out of me. And, there is a leadership side to him, but he gets freak injuries all the time because of his style. He's not a captain, is he? I mean, he was a captain, and when he first got here, I thought he was captain material, but Mikko Koivu already had it, and you don't just walk up and strip the C off someone's chest. You just don't do that. Well, I don't know. They wouldn't have to necessarily do it that way. They don't have to walk up and say, Mikko, come up here. Turn towards the team. Drums. Zach, come on up here. Pat, pat, pat. No, it doesn't work. They wouldn't have done it like that. It wouldn't have been that bad. At bare minimum, Koivu would have still been an alternate if they did something like that. This isn't a TV show, like some comedic TV show where they did that to football players. I forget what show it was. Some stupid show where they ripped the captain off the guy's chest and said, they was just kind of like making a mockery of everything. They wouldn't have done that to him anyway, even if they quote-unquote stripped the C off his chest. I don't think it would have been that disrespectful. I mean, Joe Bleepin Thornton, Jumbo Joe was okay with it. Jumbo Joe, who was the San Jose Sharks forever, well, at least ever since he left Boston to San Jose, he was like this. He's kind of like Mr. Shark, Jumbo Joe, and he gave the captaincy over to Pavelski, and I didn't sense anything like the whole team had chemistry issues. They went to the Cup finals, right? So, I mean, I don't know. It happens. It happens sometimes. But they might have to do something like that with Suter or Parisi, giving up an alternate too if Marcus Foligno sticks around. He has skill, but it's nothing spectacular when it comes to Foligno. Occasionally, it does look borderline spectacular. A guy, well, I'm just bouncing around, and I apologize. Spurgeon is kind of a lead-by-example type of captain, and he is just the nicest guy ever. He's really big on communication. I am too. Just look at me and my new supervisor. We text way more. We've probably texted more in the last month and a half than me and the previous supervisor texted in the last 8 years. And I'm not kidding. What does that tell you? So, I mean, there's some leadership there between the both of us, because I'm kind of like a lead trainer. He's the supervisor, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, like Spurgeon, it'd be like if he's the captain, he communicates very well with guys. I think there's a good side to Spurgeon. He's just not the Mr. Run through a wall, rah-rah-ree kind of guy like maybe Mr. Foligno is. Or like Foligno also is a guy that might call people out without disrespecting them, but call them out like, hey, he can be a lot better than that type of thing. That's what I like about Foligno. You don't have to be a star player, but at the same time, if you're like a fourth liner too, that's the one thing that might hurt Foligno's chances. It'd be shocking if they gave it to somebody like a Kaprizov. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to give it to Fiala, which it'd be really cool if they did. But I don't know. It's a really tough call. It's probably just Spurgeon at this point by default. But I think that's probably where they're going to go. The thing is, it's going to have to be somebody that's going to be here for a while, because you don't just go through captains every 5 seconds. You don't have to be the captain for 10 years, but at least like 5 or something like that, which I think that could be Jared Spurgeon. So that's my guess. That's my call. It's going to wind up with Jared Spurgeon at the end of the day. The production level of this club, Dumba, I mean, his consistency has dropped off significantly. I think he's become predictable, and the more and more I can understand that pectoral injury would have effed up his shot, is plain as day. I mean, again, just out practicing, and the soreness I feel in my chest, practicing, trying to work on my skills, trying to, work on my accuracy per se with my shot, this and that. I'm awfully sore because of how much time I spent, trying, shoot, because those are muscles I hadn't used a lot lately. And it's in the exact area where Dumba had his injury. So I could imagine that affected his shot a bit even afterward. But at the same time, his shot was blocked about 100,000 times last year because of how predictable it is. It's like there's no real disguise to his shot. It's just, okay, I'm going to shoot now. Okay, I'm going to shoot now. Okay, I'm going to shoot now. And that's where the frustration could come in with Matt Dumba. The lack of production last year compared to the year before, the injury, and the year before that, where he had 50 points, and he was on pace for maybe 60 that next year before that pectoral injury, thanks to Mr. Tkachuk, which was a pain in the butt. Hard to believe Dumba's already 26 and has 7 years in the National Hockey League. Man, that's crazy. Isn't that crazy? Broteen, 8 years in the league already, but hey, 2011 was a long time ago. 2012 was a long time ago. Unbelievable how quickly those guys got to the NHL when you really think about that. Joel Eriksson Ek is still only 23, 24 for Kevin Fiala. So you got some nice youth. Foligno is just under 30. Greenway's 23. You got a lot of youth. Kaapo Kähkönen is 24. Kaprizov is still 23. So there's hope. There's this, there's that. Brennan Mendel's been in the KHL. He's been spectacular. Absolutely great, generally speaking. Greg Pattern is still on the roster for one more year. I don't even see him playing this year. I, honest to God, have no idea what to really make of what's going to happen with Greg Pattern. I don't think anybody's really excited about him. I mean, his hockey IQ wasn't good. I keep saying that like every bleeping episode. His hockey IQ wasn't really that spectacular. No scoring ability whatsoever. His defense can be good, but then the next moment he'll have some terrible turnovers. So Greg Pattern, I prefer he's in the AHL if he's even playing, or in the press box, and he's like an injury replacement if need be. I just, and obviously he's not going to start the season on the Wild roster anyway, because whatever injury he had, must be significant because he just hasn't been playing at all. And then Marcus Johansson's at that magical age of 3-0, which a lot of times for hockey forwards is not a good thing. So I don't see the Wild committing long term to Marcus Johansson. I don't. He'll be lucky to get a three-year offer for, I don't know, it might be $5 million a year, depending on how well he plays. But you can't really go too far. You can't. Don't make the same mistake we did with Jason Pominville. His first 2 years with his new contract, he was great. After that, it was like, oh boy, he's not scoring anymore, is he? Okay, he did score. That's nice, but this is his first goal in 9 games. So there's that. There's that. Going into the season and into the off season, this and that with guys like Marcus Johansson. I don't know, man. Honest to God, I don't know. I don't know about signing him in the off season. And if the Wild are having a very disappointing season, I could definitely see guys like Johansson, Nick Bonino as trade bait in the as we near the trade deadline. Unfortunately, it looks like draft time is going to be like mid to late July, right? It was the 23rd and 24th, so it's nice how they just kind of hammered it all out and they rolled out all the dates, like the free agency period, the NHL draft, and all that. I think that's cool that they were able to hammer that all out. The NBA, we still don't even know when the NBA draft is, and the season started last night. At least at the time I'm recording segment 1 here, on the 23rd of December. Of course, again, with these larger shows, previews, and state of this and stuff like that, oftentimes I'll piece the show together over a couple days. So right now I'm witnessing the December 23rd, 2020 blizzard right before my eyes here in Golden Valley, Minnesota. So, but yeah, at this moment, they still haven't released the NBA draft date yet, which is kind of funny. But NHL draft, they're ready to go in July, so literally a month later. But I'm guessing the season will start at normal time next year, which will be great. Wouldn't that be terrific? Because I think we're ready to go one way or another, even if you have to be in division still. You got your vaccine, depending on how you feel about it. It's out there. The vaccine is out there. It's just not everywhere immediately this second. But it is out there now. So possibilities exist that we could see fans in the stands again, eh? If it's limited or not limited or whatever it is. And depending on how comfortable people feel with the vaccine or lack thereof, and how strict and harsh the government's going to be about these vaccines. We'll see. We'll see how strict and harsh they're going to be. I would like to lean towards less control, if possible, because the more control, I think, boy, it's a frightening precedent. That's just my opinion. I'll leave that alone at the end of the day. Maybe I'll talk about that on the Freedom of Thought podcast instead, that part. But I mean, there's hope with this roster, this and that. Unfortunately, you got to wait until February for the Iowa Wild. But it's funny, that's not even that far away anymore. Especially it's only about a month later than the start of the NHL season. Now the noise is starting up upstairs again. These people are clowns. Clowns. Good thing they're leaving soon. Oh, hallelujah. I don't know why they're not showing the schedule on Yahoo Sports. They're just showing the Vancouver with 3 losses in a row. But the Wild will start off the season against the San Jose Sharks, which is, that's a good thing for the most part. 56-game schedule. Yeah, it is up already. Okay, so they're talking about starting on the 13th, but those are preseason games. The regular season for the Wild starts on Jan 22nd, so literally about a month away still. Thursday, January 14th at Los Angeles. Time to be decided. Everything's time to be decided. At Los Angeles 2 days later, at Anaheim and at Anaheim. So we're going to be all on the road in our preseason in Los Angeles and Anaheim. So we're basically moving a couple miles, or I suppose in the LA area it might be like 30, 40 miles, but they're right on top of each other. Like Anaheim is like Bloomington to Minneapolis, basically, when it comes to LA. And then the Wild host the San Jose Sharks back-to-back, Friday and Sunday, to open up the regular season, and then you get Los Angeles, Colorado, Arizona, St. Louis, Los Angeles, Vegas. You get the idea. We play the same teams over and over and over until May the 8th. The Wild wrap up the regular season against the Clucks, the Mighty Ducks, back to back, Friday and Saturday. Friday Friday and Saturday, May the 7th and 8th, to wrap up the regular season, hopefully en route to a postseason run. We'll see what happens. It's going to be intriguing. It's going to be intriguing. The Wild regular season, at least in the Derek Felska article, I had the Wild finishing, did I have 29 wins? I'm going to go with 30. Yeah, I think I had 30 wins, 21 losses, and 5 overtime losses. And I do believe the Wild make the postseason, but will be lower end, like one of the lower end road type of teams. But we will make the postseason. It will be a little better than last year, this and that. There's a possibility this team could really, really jump up, and there's a possibility that it's not going to be all that great. Depends on how Marcus Johansson factors as the center for the Minnesota Wild top line. Maybe Marco Rossi really jumps up. Maybe he doesn't. And pray to God there isn't major significant injuries, especially to the young guys, but really to anybody. Anybody significant on this roster. But I mean, even even like a third pairing guy, you don't like to see guys get injured. It sucks. Obviously, injuries do happen in every sport, and Zuccarello's already down. So it's all kind of a, hope and pray for the best, that people stay healthy or they get healthy at the right time, right place, and something wonderful happens at the end of the day for the Minnesota Wild. Oh, man. So, I mean, Kevin Fiala led the team in scoring last year. I think he does it again. I think Kevin Fiala will lead the Minnesota Wild in scoring again. Last year, the Wild were 35, 27, and 7. And, we were kind of moving around. We were 6th in the Central. I think we'll be about 4th place. We might end up winning more than 30 games, but, it's obviously a much more condensed schedule. Last year we got 35 wins in, 69, 70 games. So in 56 games, 30 wins would be pretty solid. Pretty solid. Wild were 8 games above 500 with 7 OT losses last year. I have them 9 or 10 games above 500 with only 5 overtime losses this year. So the Wild officially played 69 games last season. St. Louis played 71. That's funny. So obviously there are different schedules, and that's just how it goes sometimes. Fiala led the club with 54 points in 64 games. I'd expect something higher this year. Too bad we don't have a full season, but I could expect something out of Fiala in a regular season, at a regular season pace of close to 80 points this year. I'm dead bleeping serious about that one. I think he's going to get the equivalent of what 35 goals would be in a regular season, with give or take with injuries or this and that. Hopefully minimal when it comes to injuries. He missed a tiny bit of time last year. He missed 5 games last year, did Fiala. Suter wound up with 48 points in only 69 games. When you realize how good that is, as much as we don't like Suter at times, and again, that dictatorial behavior in the, in the background, off the camera and blah, 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 in the locker room, who knows, some of that dictatorial behavior, he still is an awesome player at the end of the day. He's kind of an ageless wonder as well. Again, 48 points last year in only 69 games. And he played all 69, by the way. That's on pace for about, 55, 56 points. That's the best that a defenseman has ever done for Minnesota, ever. So, pretty spectacular stuff at the end of the day. And, of course, he's a very sound defensive defenseman as well. So, to go along with all that. An underrated player, but, overrated leader, I would have to say. He's not this, win one, or, give me wins or give me death. He's not that kind of guy. Where I think Parise has a bit of that in him, which I still appreciate out of Zach. I think the improved goaltending will help this team as well. I think Talbot's got to be better than what we had the last year. Dubnyk has dropped off so much the last 2 years. It's a shame, and we'll see how he does in San Jose. Alex Stalock starting out the year injured, unfortunately. And he's a limited guy. He is a backup goalie. Love him or hate him, he's a backup goalie. Obviously, he's very likable. He's one of the most popular men in the history of the Minnesota Wild. But again, he's a limited guy. He is a backup goalie. He's a starting AHL goalie or a backup NHL goalie. So that's just kind of where you stand with our buddy Alex Stalock. Will we get to see Kalen Addison? Will we get to see Kalen Addison suit up for the Minnesota Wild in terms of for the Minnesota Wild this soon? Might be a little too early. I think Rossi, there's a strong possibility that he'll be ready to go. There's just something about that Rossi guy that I think he's ready. And I do think he's a top 5 type of a player. It's just that it was just like Justin Jefferson with Minnesota when he went, 21st in the draft. He went that much lower because there were so many wide receivers, and he still ended up being better than those other guys anyway. These other teams ended up taking chances on forwards in terms of Hughes and all that, leading up to our pick, which was 9th. Still a very high pick, but good chance Rossi in a lot of seasons could have gone as high as 3rd, 4th, or 5th. And, those are usually kind of guys that suit up for their NHL team. So hopefully Rossi ends up being that type of guy for Minnesota this season. I'm optimistic about that, but not overly, obviously. He would probably be on the second line to start things out, and we'll see what happens. You'd probably get to see him pair up with Fiala or Kaprizov here and there on that second line, shuffle things around, and maybe it would be basically like a 1A anyway. A 1A type of line, not just first line, this guy, second line, that guy. You're the second line, you're not the first line. It might be just a 1A, 1B type of situation with the top 2 lines for Minnesota. At the end of the day, with the Parisis and the Fialas and the Kaprizovs and this and that, which would then have Joel Eriksson in a more slightly appropriate third line role. Even though I think he's capable of being a second line center, just got to see some of that offense that he was producing in the AHL. He was like a point a game type of guy in the AHL. So that's the exciting part about what Joel Eriksson could do at the AHL level. If he could get somewhat near that in the NHL, what an awesome thing that would be when you consider what a spectacular, responsible defensive center he truly is. Where he's so good at defense, he frustrates everybody. Erik Haula finally signed somewhere with the Nashville Predators. It looks like Mikael Granlund just signed with the Nashville Predators again. Did he? Did he just sign with the Predators? Because Haula did. Did they both sign there? I'll be a son of a gun. Looks like it just happened, didn't he? That's just Erik Haula, Mikael Granlund. So Erik Haula is 1 year, 175. Mikael Granlund, yep, he did go back to the Predators. It just... That's the darndest thing. Yep. Is this? No, that's the wrong person. Where is Mikael Granlund? There it is. 1 year contract just happened today. This afternoon. Wow, 1 year, 3.75. So, okay. Okay, I was looking at who's this Luke guy? Wrong guy. Yep, no, Luke guy. I'm just being a dork here. But Haula was signed, and Granlund. Both Granlund returning to the Nashville Predators, and Haula also joining his former teammate with the Minnesota Wild. So both Finnish guys looking to, have some success with Nashville, I guess. So I'm surprised. So we'll see what happens. Well, I mean, good for Granlund, and Minnesota Wild did not go after him, and that's fine. It is what it is. Whatever, right? It is what it is. They're calling him a center, obviously, Granlund, but he's more of a right wing, left wing. He could play any wing, basically. He's played a lot of right with Minnesota, but that's the Wild, because there were always openings on the right and not on the left, traditionally, and still kind of going to be the case forever, pretty much, like Fiala playing on the right side, this and that. So, again, I see the Wild is about, nearing 10 games above 500, making the playoffs, and hopefully something great happens. But we'll have to wait and see how that goes, starting off things with the Sharks and such. I think the Wild should compete in the division pretty well. We're up and down with the Sharks, but if Dubnyk's the goalie, it depends. If Dubnyk just kind of knows everybody and knows all their tricks and this and that, and he shuts us down every game, or do we just absolutely destroy him? Hopefully it's the latter. No disrespect to Dubnyk. But, hey, we got to win, right? It is what it is. You're on the other team. We always play well against Vegas. We rarely play well against LA and Anaheim, which is annoying. Arizona is a very good matchup. It's very entertaining. That's kind of back and forth. So there's good and there's bad when it comes to the division matchups, when it comes to the Wild going forward. Man, Vegas, obviously. St. Louis, we play well against them. We don't play well against them. Colorado, we play very well against them at times. Sometimes they smoke us. So it's kind of hit and miss with St. Louis, Colorado, again, which probably has the Wild about 4th place at the end of the day. I'll just kind of stick with where I'm at and making the playoffs, and we'll see what happens from there. Hopefully maybe the Wild pull off some kind of interesting trade during the trade deadline, as we near it, for improving the team. With that said, I will take a quick break, and then we will preview the rest of the NHL and come up with our conference finalists, our Stanley Cup finalist and champion going into 2021. We are back here on Brave the Wild, segment number 2. We're going to look around the NHL a bit. And segment number 3, we'll look at some prospects and fan interaction. We'll look to pick up what you guys have to say on Twitter, at Brave the Wild, facebook.com/BraveTheWild.Minnesota is the Facebook page, but the Twitter account seems to be a lot more active. Like I said in the previous segment, Mikael Granlund had signed a 1-year deal, so that's a brand new signing right there with the Nashville Predators. So he's staying with the Predators, and Eric Holla also joining him in Nashville in that Central Division. So just kind of continuing right away here, but the fan interaction segment will be a few days later, probably after Christmas. So the show's release will be after Christmas, but doing some of these segments before Christmas just to kind of get things going here. It's a good time to record, and, obviously don't expect a lot of major changes, but I'd like to get more fan interaction after Christmas. That's probably a good plan there, because I think right now, if I said, hey, let's hear what everyone has to say, it'll be like, hello? Hello? Anybody out there? Hello? Damn. So, yeah, that way, and this also, I won't have to rush and panic and all that when I want to get the show out, and the schedule gets tight again, as it will sooner rather than later, I'm sure. So the North Division, you got Calgary, Edmonton, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Vancouver. So it's all these groups, all these other divisions matching together into a Canadian division. Who's going to win that division? Who's the best team there? Boy, I think it's kind of down to Toronto and Vancouver. Some people would even say Montreal. Edmonton's got all kinds of talent, but are they ever going to kind of get it together? It's a tough situation. You got Koskinen. He's an okay goalie, but he's just okay. Edmonton is a team that I like. I like them. I like the talent there. The goaltending is just, there's just nothing going on. Anton Forsberg is like a hope at some point, but how excited can you get? Obviously, he's already moved up in years already. Yeah, it's like he's just been kind of sitting there for a while. He was a prospect with the Columbus Blue Jackets years ago, but he just had a couple moments. He's nothing special so far for Edmonton. Otherwise, you got Stuart Skinner. Those are guys in the system. This guy's much younger, third-round pick. Obviously, has had no action in the NHL yet. Third-round pick in 2017. He's, obviously got much more of a future ahead of him than I think Anton Forsberg. He's probably like the third goalie, basically. Koskinen, he has his moments, and then he doesn't have his moments, and he has his moments, and he doesn't have his moments. He's just adequate. The defense in Edmonton, it just seems like it's never going to improve. They're never able to bring in the right guys. Hopefully they did that through the draft, that type of thing. Tyson Barrie's decent. He was a nice addition, actually. So there's some hope, but he's kind of more of an offensive defenseman with defensive capabilities. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Kyle Turris was added on board. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was kept. Tyler Ennis is home at Edmonton. But he will not be joining Jared Spurgeon unless there's a huge trade. I don't know why I'm looking at Edmonton so much, but it's the kind of team they should win the division, right? With all that talent at the top. But then again, the problem is there's just, it's a top-heavy team with not a whole lot afterward. Defenseman Adam Larson, it's just a mediocre guy, this and that. So, Calgary's a team I'm a fan, obviously, of Calgary a bit. Even though there have been some bad days. Jacob Markstrom was added in the offseason. He's obviously stabilizing the goaltending position. If he's anything like he was with Vancouver last year, Calgary's finally got a goaltender. And then you got David Rittich for a backup. See, David Rittich is an okay backup, but, he's definitely not a full-time starter in my mind. He just never seemed to get that. Markstrom, obviously, it's a big commitment, and he's not that young. That's the one thing, so they're going to have to really hope for the best there with that Markstrom stays on his game for a while. Luckily for him, he didn't get a whole lot of burnout earlier in his career, but then again, neither did Dubnyk. So as long as David Rittich can back him up and get in almost 40% plus of the games, then Markstrom may last a while. Giordano is absolutely spectacular. He's a great captain, blah, blah, blah. He's had some good years. He's had better years than other years. And then there's frustration. Looks like Luis Dominguez now on the roster as well to help out potentially. Elias Lindholm was a great addition years ago, but hasn't been the best. He wasn't as good last year as he was his first year with Calgary. Those are my two favorite teams in that division, but I don't know. Montreal, they had a nice little postseason. They actually advanced. That was impressive, actually. I was impressed with what they were able to accomplish. Carey Price, still one of the better goalies, generally speaking. They added Jake Allen, which I never even mentioned on the show. I kept wanting to bring it up, and I never did. But Jake Allen was acquired in the offseason. Obviously a significant move. Carey Price, though, he's the franchise goalie, even though he's had bad seasons in the past. But generally speaking, it was the defense in front of Carey Price was the problem. Man, Carey Price is already, gosh, I can't believe it. He's already 33 years old. I can't believe it. It's kind of sad. Obviously, Minnesota could have had him if not for, was it AJ Thielen? No, that was the Puglia year. Man, he's been in the league a long time. Just scroll down, and it's just eons and eons and eons of years already for Carey Price. So, unfortunately, I got to think his days might be numbered. Jake Allen, obviously, great year with St. Louis last year when the pressure was taken off. 12-6, 2.15 goals against average. What a nice season. And he'll probably be, I don't think he's the goalie of the future or anything for Montreal, but he's got a chance to be a viable guy for them. I don't know what to make of Montreal. Obviously, they have scorers. They have some offensive capabilities. The defense is, it's all over the place. I don't know what to think of Montreal. Shea Weber's obviously talented, but he's super old now, just like Ryan Suter. So, who's going to win that division? I mean, you got to go with Toronto, right? I got to think Toronto wins that division. Will they finally win a freaking playoff series? That's the thing. I mean, will Toronto finally win a playoff series? They're the second best offense in the NHL the past couple of years, basically. They've been spectacular, like right behind Tampa Bay, basically. But they probably get swept by Tampa Bay in the playoffs if that came up. I mean, you got talent after talent after talent. Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Joe Thornton. Yep, Jumbo Joe is now Toronto. One more year or two with the NHL. Probably this has got to be about it. Wayne Simmons would be on the fourth line. Yikes. TJ Brody was added. Frederick Anderson is a decent goalie. Jack Campbell added as a backup. And Aaron Dell, the former Shark, also in the goaltending mix. Mitch Marner, not Warner. Obviously, awesome, scoring threat. Some people were hoping Minnesota could get him, blah, blah, blah. It's time for Toronto to make a move. Come on, Toronto. Come on, Toronto. Get to the East Finals. Let's go. Let's go, Toronto. Go to the Cup Finals for the first time since, God knows, like the 60s, right? Come on, Toronto. Come on, Toronto. Let's go, Toronto. Toronto's got to win the North. Obviously, the only other team that's a legitimate, I think, absolute legit threat to win that division is the Vancouver Canucks. They let go of Jacob Markstrom, and then they got Holtby. Okay. They still have Thatcher Demko. Okay, we'll see if he can pick up where he left off. Michael DiPietro. That's kind of funny. Michael DiPietro, one of the best defensemen in the NHL. Quinn Hughes already. JT Miller's so valuable. Acquired from the Rangers. Brock Besser. Louis Erickson's like 90 years old, but occasionally he's still got it. Occasionally. Bo Horvat's one of the better second-line centers you're going to ever see. Elias Pettersson is awesome. Alexander Edler's awesome. After that, they're kind of okay at defense, but the top two guys are so good, it almost doesn't matter. Same with their forward situation. Their top two lines, except for Louis Eriksson. God, he's ancient. Pettersson, though, man, he's an awesome player. Obviously, scoring phenom type of guy. And then Quinn Hughes might be the best overall player on the roster from Orlando, Florida. Hockey hotbed that it is, but hey, it's a good thing the NHL branched into Orlando, Florida, or into Florida in general, like Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning and stuff many years ago, because it brings you guys like this, and and guys like Brandon Duhaime in Minnesota as well, from Parkland, Florida. Vancouver Canucks. Oh boy, I don't know. What do you make of Brandon Holtby? The Braden Holtby. He was great a couple of years ago. I just called him Brandon. What the flip? Braden Holtby. Just a couple of years ago, he was spectacular with Washington, but then all of a sudden it's like he aged like 10 years, and he stunk. Absolutely stunk after, he was spectacular, leading them to the Cup title, 17-18. He was great the whole year. He had up and down years, but generally speaking, he was a very good, solid goalie, and that's when Washington started to become real good, become like a legitimate Cup threat. And then, boy, the last couple of years kind of mediocre, and then the postseason, he was not good. He was okay in the postseason for Washington, but ultimately not that great. Regular season, he was a bit of a sieve the whole season. I don't know what to make of that actually, but Markstrom was kind of a sieve too. So Calgary, don't put out too many eggs in one basket with that. I'm going to pick Toronto to win the North. Ottawa, it's just Ottawa's rebuilding. There's not a whole lot to say there with the Ottawa Senators. They're just rebuilding, and They got some really nice young players. They really do. Some nice prospects. They got a chance to be something eventually. They're just not there yet. Matt Murray, though, at goalie, that's the one major move. And of course, Brady Tkachuk is extremely good. Thomas Chabot is something to be excited about, but we'll see. Matt Murray's at least in net, so maybe that'll stabilize things there. Because Craig Anderson is like 95 years old. Like, seriously, I can't believe you're still in the league. It's crazy. The West, we'll get to West, we'll talk about that. I probably spent too much time on the North, but I kind of like those teams a little bit. The East Division is all those metropolitan teams, basically. It's the Metropolitan Division, basically. Basically, it pretty much is. I mean, New Jersey, Buffalo. I don't know what to make of the Sabres, honest to God. I have no freaking idea what to make of the Buffalo Sabres. Boston Bruins. Where the heck is Detroit? Yeah, they're in the Central, just like the Norris Division in the past, which was kind of cool back in the day. I guess that was like just a few years ago. Seems like yesterday Detroit moved to the Eastern Conference. It's been a while already, hasn't it? It's kind of weird. New Jersey, when are they going to step up and get better? They've had a lot of nice young players come in, and they're still not better. Mackenzie Blackwood. Is it time to get going? And they added Corey Crawford in the offseason. Is Nico Herschier, is he finally going to get going? Jack Hughes, fortunately, landed on my fantasy team somehow. Let's go, Jack. Let's see what you can do. And Nico especially. Gosh, 2 years ago was the number one pick in the draft, 3 years ago. And he's just okay so far. He hasn't stepped up that great. PK Subban, obviously, there's more with Herschier than meets the eye, but he's not, he didn't come in as a phenom. He was just the number one pick, basically. Kind of like with the Timberwolves this year with Anthony Edwards. We'll see what happens there. God, I hope that guy ends up being great. I don't think New Jersey's a playoff team. No, I don't think New Jersey makes the postseason. We'll see, but I don't think so. Buffalo Sabres, they've been knocking on the door. Every other year you think, is it finally the year for Buffalo to get better? I don't know. I mean, Boston's got to be the division champ in that group, right? Other than Philadelphia. Linus Ullmark, Carter Hutton. I like those two goalies. And Rasmus Dahlin, obviously, but he's been banged up all the time. Taylor Hall went there. Victor Olofsson's been something. Sam Reinhart's been, he's had his days. Kyle Oposo, almost forgot he existed. Eric Stahl is going to be the second-line center behind Jack Eichel. Interesting stuff. I don't know. It's an okay roster. Where's Pominville? He must not be playing anymore. I don't know. Pominville. Yep, almost forgot about that guy. He's not even. Yep, I don't know. I think he must still be a free agent. Poor guy. Jason Pominville. Jason Pominville. Buffalo, they have a shot, but I don't know what to say at the end of the day with that one. The playoff format will be basically old school, kind of like, it's going to be back to 16, which is good. That's not old school, that part isn't, but it's going to be like the first four teams in the division, kind of like in the old days of the Norris and such. So it's going to be, if you're in fourth place, you make it. So the Wild would make it if they were fourth place in that divisione. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I think Calgary makes it. Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, Vancouver make it for sure. Even Winnipeg, I didn't even talk about them. They're not making the playoffs. Toronto, Vancouver make it for sure in the North. So it's probably almost a better way to look at it. Calgary, and it's going to be Montreal or Edmonton. I have to pick Edmonton just because of the star power. Edmonton's fourth. Toronto's first, Vancouver's second, Calgary third, Edmonton fourth. Montreal will be knocking on the door with the Edmonton Oilers and Calgary Flames, so one of them will get knocked out. Eastern Division, you got the Boston Bruins. I think they're absolutely elite. Absolutely an elite franchise. I feel bad that they got knocked out last year in that weird situation, this and that. New York Islanders got to the East Finals. They were great. Boston wins the East, I think. I think Boston absolutely wins the Eastern Division and probably gets back to the Cup Finals. We'll see if Tuukka Rask can shake some of that infamous he can't win the big game vibe. Patrice Bergeron, spectacular. But unfortunately, a lot of these guys are just getting a little bit older. Every year they're getting older and older. Like Tuukka Rask getting older. Yaroslav Velaka was really solid since joining Boston. Just getting older and older and older. Bergeron's just getting older. It just goes on and on and on. Got Craig Smith. Charlie Coyle's the third line center still at the moment. He might see some second line. Brad Marchand, again, another guy who's just getting older and older and older. He was on the 2011 Cup Champs as a rookie. He was valuable, but not like he is now. Not like a 100-point guy like he is now. He's a jackass, and he's a hell of a player. Boston, I think, yeah, they got to be first place. I mean, they're going to win enough games to be first place in the East. Second place, that's between, God, there's so many talented teams in this division. Oh, my God. So you're telling me only 4 teams can make it out of those 8. Well, New Jersey won't make it. Buffalo will not make it. I think the Rangers will not make it, so at least you eliminate those 3 right away. And then you got Philly, Pittsburgh, Washington, New York Islanders all competing. You know, because you got Boston. I think Boston and the Philadelphia Flyers make it for sure. New Jersey, Buffalo don't make it. Good God. New Jersey, Buffalo, and the New York Rangers do not make it. So then Boston, the Islanders, and Philadelphia Flyers, I think, are shoe-ins. So then it's down to Pittsburgh and Washington. One of those 2 would miss it, at least in the way I look at things. The Penguins ready to miss the playoffs? I think the Penguins missed the playoffs because Washington's going to make it. Washington's going to make it. I think the Penguins missed the playoffs. Chris Porter, just in case you're listening, oh boy, he's going to be laughing at me or kicking me in the face. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong because Tristan Jarry is so good. And Sidney Crosby is still probably the best player in the league. Jake Gensel, if he can stay healthy, he's got super talent. That's where Pittsburgh got lucky to bring him back. But then they lost to Montreal. That was funny, man. Pittsburgh lost to Montreal. That's a tough division. I wouldn't like this if I was some of those guys. But it's like, hey, go out and make it, eh? Go out and make it. Suck it up and go and make it there. That type of thing. New York Rangers, no way, man. Even though they have a nice group of players, it's not time yet. And in this tough division, they can't. This would have to be a situation where it's the top 8 teams make it. Then maybe the Rangers can make it as like a 5th or 6th place team. It would be 6th though when you think of Pittsburgh and Washington and New York Islanders and stuff. They're not gonna finish ahead of them, and they sure as Mickey frickin' you know what aren't finishing ahead of the Boston Bruins. So I guess the Pittsburgh Penguins missed the playoffs, which is going to get a lot of laughs and smacks in the face. They finished 17 games of 500 last year. I'm not picking the Philadelphia Flyers to miss the playoffs, even though part of me wants to, but no, part of me really wouldn't want that. I mean, Carter Hart's obviously great goaltender. Provorov, Sean Couturier, Kevin Hayes, Claude Giroux, guys like that. It's not the spectacular lineup, but it's a good team. And you got the great goaltending. Brian Elliott, yeah, as long as he stays healthy in terms of Carter Hart, yeah, I mean, they got something going there. Pittsburgh misses the playoffs. Washington's 4th. Washington's 4th. I think Islanders are 2nd. Philly's 3rd. I think Islanders are 2nd, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I should almost pick Philly to be 2nd. I don't know. I'm going to go with the Islanders, man. I think they got a chance. So Boston, New York Islanders, Flyers 3rd, and the Washington Capitals 4th, even though I don't like the Capitals that much. Sorry to Isha. I know he likes them, of the Soda Pod. Hoppy, I know he likes Pittsburgh. That's the guy. That's the other guy. Yeah, he likes Pittsburgh. Oh my! I bet he's If just in case he's listening, maybe he's too bored or too good for the show. I don't know. Nice guy though, awesome guy. I don't know. I think Penguins missed the playoffs. He's probably going to smack me in the face for that one, but I don't know. They'll be 5th. They'll be knocking on the door. Maybe I'll be totally wrong, and they'll be in 2nd. They'll wipe New York on the ground. But I really like the Islanders, man. I just love the Islanders. Oh man. Boy, it's a tough call in that division. But that's it, okay? I made my point. Boston makes it with the Islanders, the Flyers, and the Islanders, Flyers, and Capitals. Central Division. See, who's going to be in what conference? That's what I don't know. I think the North and the West will be facing off in the conferences there. Yeah, that's my guess. And then the East and the Central will face off in that conference later on in the semis. That's just my guess. I guess so. You got Carolina, Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, blah, 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 Detroit. Well, Detroit will not make the playoffs. 7th place. Chicago will not make the playoffs. Chicago Blackhawks will not make the playoffs. Tampa Bay Lightning finishing 1st. At the end of the day, Tampa Bay Lightning finishing 1st. Now it gets kind of tough right away with teams like the Dallas Stars, Carolina Hurricanes, teams like that. Man, I love Carolina. Obviously, Dallas was good, but are they going to have the team that just lost the Cup Finals syndrome where they drop off? Teams that lose sometimes drop off. I mean, you look at that Carolina roster. It's so awesome. Now they have Trocheck to be a second-line center to help out. Dougie Hamilton, goaltending's adequate with Merzak, guys like that. But you got Teuvo Teravainen, awesome. Sebastian Aho. I really like the bunch of jerks, so to speak. I really do. I really like them. Dallas Stars, dangerous. Stars are going to make the playoffs. They'll be like third or fourth, though. Tampa's first, Carolina's second, third. God, I don't know what to make of the Nashville Predators. They missed the playoffs. I don't like the Predators anymore. They stink. They missed the playoffs. I think their run is over. Yeah. I think the run's over. Looks like Saros will be the starting goalie. Rinne, the backup. That's kind of where they're heading at the moment. We'll see. I mean, Roman Rossi is awesome. Ellis is real solid. Ryan Johansson drives everyone crazy. Matt Duchene, Eric Halla. Really nice centers right there. At least the top three. Luke Cunnin, I almost forgot about that. Victor Arvidsson's awesome. I know. Philip Forsberg's real good. It's a good team. But I shouldn't say they stink. I apologize for that. They're just inconsistent. They're up and down. But they got some really nice players, obviously, throughout that team. Ekholm isn't... Oh, yeah, he's still there. I like Ekholm, too. Matthias Ekholm. I really like that guy. I'd take him on Minnesota today, man. I like that guy. It probably wouldn't be as expensive as the 5 guys we got there. Outside of, the Brad Hansen Patterns, guys like that. But even Patterns overpaid. Screw that guy. Shoot. So, Tampa first. Carolina second. Columbus is obviously ever dangerous. They really are. Columbus is dangerous. I got a lot of respect for that team. They'll be the 4th place team. So third place goes to either Florida, Nashville, Dallas. Okay, Dallas. Oh, Dallas. So Florida misses. Nashville misses. Tampa, Carolina, Dallas, Columbus. Yep. Tampa, Carolina, Dallas, Columbus. Dallas finishes fourth. Third. Detroit is out. Florida's out. Nashville's out, as they say, in Canada, along with Chicago. Yeah, Chicago's not making the playoffs either in this setup. So at least you won't get weird teams like that making the playoffs. In the Western Division, the Anaheim Ducks miss. San Jose Sharks miss. Los Angeles Kings miss. And then it gets real tough. Colorado wins the division. Colorado Avalanche win the division. Aren't you happy? I'm so happy the Colorado Avalanche win the division. It just makes you feel warm and juicy. Vegas and St. Louis. Boy, St. Louis, they dropped off last year, and I don't know what's going on with Jordan Binnington. I don't know, man. Jordan Binnington really dropped off last year. So, what happened, man? Was it just luck? After him, you got Ville Husso and John Gillies. Wow. Okay. And they got Torrey Krug now instead of, Pietrangelo. Braden Shen. Jaden Schwartz. Yeah, obviously great players. Vince Dunn's okay. Marco Scandella is now in St. Louis. Robert Thomas. David Perron. Oh, could St. Louis drop off that much? They might. Colorado wins the division. Second place, Vegas. Yeah, it's Vegas. St. Louis third. And then it's between Minnesota and Arizona for fourth. I will go with the Wild. I think they're a little better. And you know how Darcy Kemper can be. He can be a little up and down. Obviously, he's been really good. But he's up and down. And I think the Wild match up well with Arizona. Man, they were good about not getting in penalty trouble. Yeah, they scored a lot of goals last year. Good goaltending trio there, because even Aiden Hill's dangerous. I remember he frustrated the Wild. Oliver Ekman-Larsson's good. Goligoski's getting older, but he's still good. Derek Stepan, Nick Schmaltz. Remember him with the Chicago Blackhawks. Clayton Keller, obviously, he's had some wonderful moments. Phil Kessel's, I don't know how much. I don't know how great he is sometimes. He's up and down. Yeah, he's kind of a dork. At least I'm honest. Aiden Hill, yeah, he's got something there. He's a nice young guy, still up and coming. Wild finish ahead of the Nicholas Hjalmarsson from the Chicago Blackhawks dynasty. Wild make it, Arizona does not. Next team is probably the Kings or the Ducks, basically, and the Sharks, I think, finish last place at this moment. The Sharks are just done at this moment. I'll be very surprised if the Sharks do anything. Maybe Ryan Donato shocks the world and he's one of the best players ever, but yeah, okay. it'd be nice to see for Donato fans, but outside of that, sorry. It's funny, they sucked at everything except the penalty kill, which is kind of funny. They were really good in the penalty kill, but everything else. So right now, of course, Martin Jones is the starting goalie. Devin Dubnyk, the backup. Brent Burns is great. Erik Karlsson is great. Outside of that, okay. Logan Coutier, Thomas Hertl's exciting at times. He's had his moments. Evander Kane can be really good. Ryan Donato has a shot to be something. Patrick Marleau is back in San Jose. That's interesting. He's pretty old, though, man. He's really old. Burns is unfortunately 35 already. Man, I met that guy in person when he was a rookie with the Wild at one of those Taste of the Wild things kind of during the All-Star Weekend. This is the sweetest guy you ever met. No, it wasn't during All-Star Weekend. It was late in the year. It was like in March. But that was back in the day, like 03. Yeah, 03. He was just the sweetest young guy out of Ajax, Canada. Ajax, Ontario, excuse me. Man, what a sweet guy. Now he's this massive bearded guy, but you could tell he's still a great guy. I don't think he's really changed. He's just older and he's a superstar. I feel bad for him. He was in the Cup Finals. Seemed like yesterday he was in the Cup Finals, but that was 16 already. And Erik Karlsson's a nice addition, I guess, but they signed him for $1 billion, and he's 30 already. And I don't know, Patrick Marleau is 41 now. Yowza. 41 years old. That's the Sharks for you. I mean, it's just kind of a bunch of super old guys and other guys that are just, kind of trying to get things rolling, like Ryan Donato. Ryan Donato feels like Thomas Hertl's been trying to get things going for the last 5 years. He has moments, but he's not that great. He had one super good year, we'll say, in 18-19. I'll give him credit there. Awesome year. But outside of that, he's been a 40-ish point kind of guy. He's not that great. He's just all right, Good penalty kill. Sharks don't make the playoffs. I'm spending too much time on that. The Wild make it, but it's not like we're going to go to the Cup final. I'm going to assume the North and the West are a conference and the Central and East are a conference. If I'm wrong, I am super sorry and I apologize. But that's my belief. That's how things stack up here. So, in the, we'll call it the Campbell Conference, even though there's a lot of Wales team. No, it's mostly Campbell. Yeah, it's a mix. But that whole East would be Prince of Wales Conference. The whole East Division is Prince of Wales. And, Prince of Wales / Eastern Conference. But so I'll call the Campbell Conference and the Wales Conference. Hopefully they're doing that again. I think that's exactly what they're doing at this stage. Campbell Conference will have Toronto. Yes, Toronto is going to get to the conference finals versus Colorado. Woohoo. Yeah, I know. That's really a gutsy pick, right? But Colorado and Toronto will be in the Campbell Conference. It is gutsy, though, because these teams haven't gotten to the conference finals anytime super recently. It's not going to be... No, Vegas. Vegas is going to actually get past Colorado. Vegas will beat Colorado and get to the Campbell Conference final versus Toronto. The Prince of Wales Conference final, Boston, and Tampa. Boston and Tampa. Yeah, I know. It's really creative, right? But these teams are the best teams. I'm picking the best teams to get there. I mean, there's going to be no shocker necessarily. But, maybe they'll be third place and they'll get to the conference final, so to speak. So, who knows how this is all going to stack up. But Tampa's going back. Boston and Vegas will face off in the Cup final. I want to go Boston-Toronto for some original six magic. But I think Vegas finally gets back to the final again. Maybe I'm way off, though. See, now I'm just going back and forth on this. I'd love to see Toronto win, but they never win anything in the postseason. Vegas has had some success, and they got to the conference last year. Robin Leonard's the goalie. Marc-Andre Fleury is still there. They got Alex Pietrangelo. So Mark Stone will hopefully be healthier this time around. Vegas goes to the final, but Boston wins the Cup. So Boston finally gets the Stanley Cup. I might actually go with Vegas, actually. I'm going to pick Vegas to win the Cup over Boston, actually, in the Cup final. I know I'm flaky and bouncing around, but sometimes it's more fun when you're kind of like putting this and this together. There's a lot of winners on that Vegas team. Pietrangelo won the Cup just recently. Alec Martinez, it's been a while, but he's still a valuable guy. Robin Leonard has been a nice stabilizing goaltender for the Vegas Golden Knights. What happened last year is they just stopped scoring. I mean, Dallas just shut them down, absolutely shut them down. So my hope is that they're going to correct the issues that they had. When Dallas just kind of seemed to match their every move and shut them down. It was like I've never seen how Vegas could not score for their life. The hope is that they're going to get through that. That's partially where I'm leaning towards almost Toronto going all the way against Boston, which would be a really epic final. God, I can't though. It's so hard to pick either one actually in this one. But Boston for me is going to the final again after last year's disappointment. Should I go with Boston, Toronto? I'm almost picking that one. People might be like rolling their eyes on that one. Are you kidding me? Toronto's going to get to the Cup final? They have to at some point, don't they? But so does Vegas. Vegas goes to the Cup and wins it. I'm going to stick with that. Vegas wins the Cup this year in a very epic 7-game series with Boston, but they get the job done just barely over the Boston Bruins. And otherwise, Toronto-Boston would be one of the more fun series of all time, I think. That could be some great stuff. There's a lot of teams here that they've blown it when they get far. They just suddenly like run into a wall and then they don't get past. But I don't think St. Louis has got to run in them again. I think it's over. Colorado, if they get there, they might win it all. I mean, they're so good. And if obviously their star goaltender can get things rolling, Colorado could the sky's the limit with them also. But obviously, if Vegas played well against Colorado last year, and I think they still can again, Philip Grubauer is that big-time goalie that could really help this outstanding Colorado team get past everybody and maybe even win it, even maybe Colorado and Boston in the Cup final. I keep bouncing back and forth on this one, and I apologize. I just can't help it. Cale Makar is unbelievable. Landeskog is, obviously what he is. Saad is a member of that old Chicago dynasty. He's not that great, though. He's not. McKinnon might be the best player in the league. And some nights he really is. Sam Girard. Mikko Rantanen's so freaking good. And that goaltender. If Colorado can stay healthy and consistent, they're right there. They're in the big mix. It's too bad, but I mean, I guess that's how the divisions have been anyway. Kind of like the old days. They've been that way for a while. Where last year was the kind of the wild card year because of that whole situation with the bubble. Toronto, I think, is going to win out that division, though. You don't have teams like Boston, some of their old nemesis that used to knock them out. I think Toronto finally gets through, but they'll lose to the winner of the West, either Colorado or Vegas. Pardon me. I'm going to pick Vegas to win the Cup and just stick with it. With that said, we'll take a quick break, and then you get to talk about the prospects and fan interaction right after this. Back here on segment number 3 of Brave the Wild, looking at the prospects and, of course, fan interaction. Always looking forward to both of these segments. Prospects positivity is starting to bloom a bit with a lot of these guys. Matthew Boldy, guys like that. Brennan Medel. Some good moments. Philip Johansson, positive news. Pretty cool. And, of course, other guys grounded, unfortunately, because either they're going to be in the AHL or one of the other junior leagues, and some of those are either possibly going to get canceled or just you're going to wait forever, like February with the AHL. That's talked about earlier. And, of course, getting caught up with things, this and that, in between segments here and there. Dan Myers, a guy that Ryan Suter's a big fan of. No, he's a good friend, but they have an interesting little conversation back and forth about politics because they're on the opposite side.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Dan. That's good, Dan.
Always entertaining hearing from those guys. At the end of the day, the way they kind of interact. People always call it an interesting relationship, and I guess that sounds about right. An interesting relationship between the two, which is entertaining as well. Dan Myers, conversations here and there on with the Wild, this and that. Again, the 56-game schedule, scheduled to begin on the 13th of January. Minnesota Wild open things against the Los Angeles Kings back-to-back, or not necessarily back-to-back, but playing them multiple times in a row in the schedule. Then they play Anaheim. So they kind of hang out in California, and then they hang out at home for the rest of the month against the Sharks and the Kings and Colorado Avalanche. So that way it's kind of like a mini bubble. Like you go somewhere and you stay there for a while. That's the approach now, where you play the same team multiple times. Kind of like a series, I guess, in a way. And, of course, Los Angeles and Anaheim, you're kind of in the same place, basically. You're just moving across town a little bit, even though across town in those areas might be a little bit bigger. But that's how things go. Bill Guerin, in this Dan Myers article, saying how he's really comfortable. We've really been in working on this under assumptions for quite some time, and we just wanted to be prepared. I think we're pretty close to what came about on Sunday, whatever it is. Whatever happens along the way, I think everybody has learned to be flexible and expect the unexpected. We're ready to go. We know it's a different world that we're living in and we're working in. So we'll just have to be able to roll with the punches, this and that. So, yeah, that's kind of like a phrase I hear at work sometimes, too, now. You got to roll with the punches, this and that. And that's how it's going at the moment. Again, teams will start on New Year's Eve with their training camps across the league that did not participate in the bubble because they were just too terrible, like Detroit and Ottawa. Too easy assumptions there. Obviously, those two did not. January 3rd for Minnesota. And, of course, again, things get started on the 13th, but the Wild officially start on the 14th. So we get to wait an extra day. We could wait another day, right? Stanley Cup Finals will conclude in mid-July. Trade deadline will be on April the 12th. Regular season will conclude on May the 8th. Stanley Cup playoffs will revert to the classic traditional format. I do believe I talked about this in the previous segment. So, yeah, no wild cards, isn't that? The first segment, I believe. And, yes, the Seattle Kraken expansion draft will be on the 21st, and the NHL entry draft will be on the 23rd. So we might wave goodbye to Carson Soucy, Jordan Greenway, or who knows. Hopefully we don't panic and make another dumb trade like we did last time with the Vegas Golden Knights. That's pretty much how they built their team. They caught teams panicking at the last minute, this and that. Oh my God, there's nothing we can do. It's kind of a cap situation. We really don't want to lose this guy, so we'll cough this guy up. And then it's like, oh, why did we do that? Whoops. Yeah. So we'll see. It's probably not going to be Matt Dumba going to Seattle unless we actually trade Matt Dumba. This type of thing, but that probably wouldn't be a good trade because what are you going to get? At best, you'll get a draft pick in return, and it better be high. It better be a first rounder. It's going to have to be more than that, probably, though. We'll have to wait and see. Not that Matt Dumba's the spectacular, can't-miss Brent Burns level player at this stage, but who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. Free agency will commence on the 28th of July. And then I'm assuming, hopefully, training camp will start in September like it normally does, mid to late September. Maybe it'll be a tiny bit later than normal, like a week or so later. And then, of course, regular season early October. And we'll be back to normal after that. And I'm hoping that is the case. I'm really hoping then we could get back to normal here. Like hockey in November, I really love hockey in October, November, especially November. There's just a vibe, and then you go into Christmas season and Christmas lights and ice and snow and hockey, and it's just, man, there's something magical about it. But at least we get it in January and beyond, into the spring and well into the spring and into the middle of summer, I guess, when it comes to the Cup finals and such. It's going to be kind of crazy. But it kind of is what it is. It kind of is what it is, right? It's going to be similar in a way where it's going to be Cup finals, expansion draft, entry draft, free agency. Boom, 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 boom. It's going to have to go quick. And it usually kind of does anyway, doesn't it? It usually concludes around June the 17th. And then there's if there's an expansion draft, that would come, first. And then you get the entry draft right away after that, just like with Minnesota way back in 2000. And then Minnesota and Columbus, unfortunately, we had to share it. That's what kind of made things harder. That sucked. You wind up with a bunch of, okay players. Luckily, Jim Dowd and Wes Walls was actually an acquisition. He wasn't even in the expansion draft. But yeah, Dowd, guys like that. Brad Bombardier, guys like that. Manny Fernandez wasn't even acquired in that draft. Just a couple. But we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I know I may have mentioned some of this in the first segment, but just in case I didn't, now we got all the dates rolled out. You get the Wednesday, the expansion draft, Friday, entry, and then Saturday, Friday's like the first round, and then Saturday's like the rest of the draft, this and that, for the NHL entry draft, this and that. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to keep up with. Let's get to the prospects now, shall we? And just to get his name out of the way first, of course, Kalen Addison, he obviously has not played a game since March, so that's unfortunate. He was in juniors last season, so that's just kind of how that goes. And still waiting right now for at least the AHL or juniors or whatever the heck. But they actually show him as NHL at the moment, but I doubt it. He'll probably be in the AHL going into next season, very likely. Played in the Western Hockey League last year, 52 points for a season shorted by at least 17 or 18 games. During the case of the Western Hockey League, Lethbridge Hurricanes. He played for a little bit with the Willsburg-Scranton Penguins. Of course, that's a story that I didn't even talk about on this episode either because, luckily things have quieted down. But, of course, the strange drama behind the scenes there, where the head coach of that team, when Bill Guerin was still the general manager of that team, he ran the minor league AHL operation for the Pittsburgh Penguins as the assistant GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins. The head coach ended up, the head coach sexually harassed one of the assistant coach's wife in the back seat while the assistant coach was driving the car. They were like going out for a dinner, this and that. He sexually assaulted her, touching her inappropriately. We'll leave that as is. Fill in the blank there. Read between the lines. And what happened during the course of that was obviously things were not mentioned for a long time by the couple about what happened. Of course, the husband didn't even know for months, actually. They kept quiet about it. And then it was brought to the attention of Bill Guerin, this and that. And he said, I'll take care of this right away. And within a couple of days, the head coach was fired by Bill Guerin. They didn't actually mention, I don't think they went public as to why. But then people were fearing with a TSN article that Bill Guerin told everybody to keep quiet and all that. And everybody then assumed, the whole cancel culture world assumed that Bill Guerin was guilty here of covering things up for months, this and that. And that's not what happened at all, actually. So thankfully, Michael Russo locally was able to do his research, uncover things. He did not release anything right away when all of us were terrified. I kept I kept refreshing Michael Russo's tweets, this and that. And I just kept waiting, hoping to finally see the story. And then there it was about 6 or so hours after TSN, might have even been 8 hours after, where he was able to dig up more and more information. And it looks like, thankfully, that Bill Guerin will not be in any danger of losing his job. And that's good. The Wild stood behind him, this and that. So I didn't even mention that on this show. I actually talked about it on Freedom of Thought podcast a little bit, saying how, the whole cancel culture situation is driving me crazy, where people automatically jump to conclusions, and they're not buying this, they're not buying that, and they should fire Bill Guerin. I couldn't believe it. I mean, there was a lot of tweets and posts on Facebook about fire Bill Guerin, and I was like, no, man, Lord. Oh. I was worried at first because people actually initially thought that Bill Guerin even was the guy that did the sexual harassment, but no, it was the coach of the team. And I don't know, the couple didn't mention anything for a long time. It's like they just were quiet. They didn't want to get the head coach in trouble or something, but it was mostly the wife that was quiet. And then the head coach found out all the time later, or the assistant coach, pardon me, and made things really dramatic. And luckily, though, things were dealt with by Bill Guerin pretty quickly. So Bill Guerin did his job. He did his part. He did not keep quiet, this and that. He just didn't go public as to why they were fired because his bosses told him to not go public about it. So that's where things go. I know not everybody might like hearing that, but at the end of the day, Bill Guerin, to me, is not guilty of anything. And thank God he is still the general manager of the Wild, because I thought right when things are finally going right for Minnesota, we're going to lose Bill Guerin. And I would have just fallen over and started crying. Honest to God, would have been depressing. Unfortunately, Kalen Addison not participating in the World Juniors, but he's not at that stage. He's no longer under 20. He is 20. So it is what it is. He'll be in the AHL or the WHL again. I would hope the AHL at this stage. I think he's done enough in the WHL. He's had 65 points back-to-back years, all the way back to 17-18. And with that Willsburg-Scranton Penguins, in only 3 games, that was a year ago. I don't know why. But yeah, gosh, over a year ago. I don't understand. They didn't bring him back to the AHL. He had 2 assists in only 3 games, so for some reason they didn't bring him back to the AHL. Maybe they just wanted to let him keep developing in the junior level Western Hockey League, which is actually probably about one of the better junior hockey leagues out there. I think the Q is pretty damn good as well. Luckily, I cover that for MNW Prospects, the Q, as they call it, Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and the British Columbia Hockey League, the BCHL. Very proud to cover those for MNW Prospects. Look it up, MNW Prospects, facebook.com/MNW Prospects, and of course on Twitter @MNW Prospects. Thank you again for participating. Those of you that have that show, that page just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Pavel Burnett started things out and runs it, and then you add Justin Bakke, not Bakke, Bakke. Justin Bakke of the Foghorn Podcast. He participates there, and Brandon Quast, who writes for Wild Wilderness. Really proud with what he's been able to do. He does a great job as well, and a really cool guy. Obviously, he lives in Wisconsin, so he's a Packer guy. He is a Packer guy, where Derek Felska is not. We'll hear Derek Felska's name quite a bit. Sorry for bantering and bouncing all over the place, but there were things to get to here in this segment that I didn't actually talk about earlier, including the Bill Guerin story, so I deeply apologize. And, of course, Kalen Addison, that's what kind of triggered that conversation, getting into Kalen Addison conversation. And I believe I called him Cam Addison at some point, which is really strange, and I do deeply apologize for that. And I think I even wrote that in an article. Just got football on the mind for some reason, thinking about... And, of course, you got Cam Talbot on the roster as well. That kind of does things as well. Marco Rossi participating in these World Juniors. Other guys like that, Kuznetsov doing well. World Junior Championships so far, only one game, because that's how things have gotten started, of course, very early here for Marco Rossi, -4 in the game because the U.S. trumped, destroyed, whatever you want to say, Austria. The U.S. trumped them, and Matthew Boldy. So far for Boston College has just been unbelievable because college hockey's rolling. The Gophers are number one in the nation. The Gophers are number one in the nation. And I'm happy about it. And those of you that are calling them the Gophers and are saying, oh, we're happy for you, who cares? No, screw you. The Gophers have struggled for forever. The Gophers have struggled for the last 5 years. So I'm going to be happy that the Gophers are doing well. All right? I'm going to be happy about it. If you hate me for that, come on now. And of course, no, it's not personal, it's business. We're just having fun. It's all in good fun, my little ripping, this and that. Boldy struggled at the beginning of last season on the third line, moved up into the top 6, and he did freaking awesome the second half of the season. 8 points in only 4 games so far, and he's a +7 for a very improved Boston College, because they're always good. They had a down year for like a year or two there, and they're right back to being Boston College again, a team that could be in the Frozen Four against the Gophers. Hopefully the Gophers overcome that, because we've always struggled against Boston College and Boston University. And basically everybody drafted by Paul Fenton may have some kind of ties to Boston College or somehow, or the Boston Bruins, or the Nashville Predators. That's basically Paul Fenton. And it's so ironic how both Paul Fenton and Bill Guerin are from Boston. Isn't that funny? I think it's hilarious. So, yeah, I bet Bill Guerin, hey, Boston College guys, all right. Well, Matthew Boldy got a hat trick. He up in that 7-0 drubbing of Austria. Pretty cool. 4 total points. Overall, got 1 assist in the other game. With USA doing good so far. Hopefully they continue to roll in the World Junior Under-20 2021 Championships. So let's get her going. Hat trick for our buddy, Matt Boldy. Good job. And keep it coming. Keep it coming. He might be trade bait. I don't know. I don't think so. I think you'd like to have him left wing, left shot, this and that. And I know that position is extremely full. That's why people are like, no. It's funny how, so a lot of these guys will be at training camp coming up here. That's why you're seeing NHL statistics unavailable for guys that are probably not going to suit up for Minnesota this year. Guys like Hunter Jones, Kalen Addison, guys like that. Rossi, we'll see. Kuznetsov is also Kuznetsov. Why did I call him Kuznetsov? I'm thinking of someone else. But Kuznetsov, our best friend there, one of the fastest skaters, in fact, probably the fastest skater in the 2020 NHL draft. What am I talking about? I'm looking at the 2021 World Junior Championships. He has an assist so far in 2 games for Russia's under-20 club. So we'll see what happens. So far in the KHL, Meret Kuznetsov has 1 assist in 11 games in the KHL. So yeah, he is a little bit underwater there in the KHL. Very, very young son of a gun. He's only like 18 and a half. I know that sounds funny, but yeah, he was a pretty young 18 coming into the fall here, going into the draft. So super young guy. He'd be basically like a senior in high school in most cases. Born on July 17th. You'd think he'd be a senior in high school, pretty much. That or he graduated real young at 17. 1 assist so far in the KHL. That's a professional hockey league. In fact, it's looked on as the second highest league in the world behind that National Hockey League. So very, very interesting. Ryan O'Rourke did not make it. Unfortunately, he was a very he was a very close call making the team for the under 20 for the under 20. He almost made it, which would have been unbelievable for Canada. Pretty cool. Ryan O'Rourke just about made it. Damon Hunt, similar situation. Manitoba native Damon Hunt. Damon, not Damien, but Damon Hunt. Obviously, he's a tough son of a gun. He's been through a lot. Pavel Novak. He's in the World Juniors. He's a -2 so far for the Czech Republic under 20. -2 so far in 2 games, and statistics unavailable so far for the Czech League for Pavel Novak. So there's that for the newest guys of all. First off, playing for the University of Connecticut, only has 1 assist so far. He's played in 2 games for Russia and has nothing. No assist. He's even on the plus-minus, no penalty minutes, no goals. Nothing so far. 1 assist in only 2 games for Connecticut, first off. So he's going to be an interesting prospect going forward. Another left wing. Adam Beckman. There'll be conversation about him coming forward. Of course, he led the WHL in scoring last year. He was absolutely unbelievable. 48 goals. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. I wish he could come to the AHL, but probably not yet. He's only 19. He'll be 20 in May. When right about when the regular season concludes. Hopefully the Wild are going to still be playing at that stage. But Adam Beckman maybe is still a bit young, but man, dominant numbers, and he's matching up with a lot of spectacular players, comparable to a lot of extremely successful NHL players. Statistics from the WHL translating to what those guys became. Pretty exciting. KHL player in Matvey Guskov. He was a 5th-round pick for Minnesota. He got another Russian, pretty cool, drafted by the Wild in 2019. Only 1 game played so far for CSKA Moscow. Guskov. Pardon me, I'm choking to death here. Boston College's Marshall Warren, just not putting up the big numbers yet. A lot of people thought he might be an offensive guy, but I guess not. Not really. 6th-round pick in the 2019 draft. He's solid, though. Plus 6 so far for Boston College. They're just really good. He was plus 22 last year for a team that wasn't even good. Only 11 points, but plus 22. So definitely winning his battles out there has been Marshall Warren. Very cool. And he doesn't get a whole lot of penalties. Only 2 points so far in 6 games, but could be a lot worse. 1 goal, 1 assist for the left shot defenseman Marshall Warren. Yeah, you got to have some left shot defense, and we had way too many just a couple of years ago when you had the Nick Steelers and Guskov and all them. It's just it was pretty crazy, this and that. So luckily for Minnesota, well, we were able to make moves here and there, and again, super luckily for Minnesota, Carson Soucy worked out and ended up being good. Crying freaking shame for Mr. Steeler. Definitely a big crying shame there. Philip Lindbergh, the guy I wrote my first ever Gone Puck Wild article about. Still turned 22 already, unfortunately, and on January 31st. Not off to a good start. He'd been under 2 goals a game so far for University of Massachusetts. So, yeah, it's Massachusetts again, where the Pilgrims first landed way back in the old days. He has been in 5 games for the World Junior Championships. They're not showing any goals for some reason. There are not goals, not showing any numbers, but we'll see how he's doing overall. They're not showing numbers for that. That's unfortunate for how he's done. But, that was 2019. So, yeah, what am I talking about? Yeah, so he could not participate. There's no way. But 3.45 goals against thus far. Yeah, and I didn't think he was in the World Junior Championships. I'm like, wait a minute, what's this? Yeah, he's too old. Yes, he is. 3.45 goals against average so far. Off to a crappy start, though, for Boston College. Only 2 games played so far. He's been kind of a platoon there, playing the same amount of games, and that's what the article talked about. He's basically been a platoon since joining UMass Amherst. He's a junior at this point, but 88 save percentage right now, 88.1, and he's got 1 loss and 1 tie, so to speak. It's overtime losses, what ties are in college hockey. No shutouts, of course, because his numbers would be a lot better. He was really good. It's like he's gradually gotten worse the past couple of years. Spectacular as a freshman was Philip Lindbergh, but yeah, we'll see. I do believe things will even out, and Lindbergh will step it up nicely moving forward for UMass Amherst. I'm really hoping for that. Love Philip Lindbergh, rooting for him in a big way. Philip Johansson is a wonderful story all of a sudden. Multiple points in multiple games just lately. He'd struggled for forever, even, of course, during this season. There was nothing going on, but the past couple of days here, he's got 6 points all of a sudden, 3 goals and 3 assists. He's had 4 points in like the last week. Philip Johansson has been wonderful for Frölunda Hockey Club in the Swedish Hockey League. 21 games, 6 points, career high so far for Philip Lindberg. He had only 1 goal back in 17-18, and then he was drafted that summer by Paul Fenton, and since then he's had only 8 points in the 2 years, 4 points respectively, but now he's got a career high of 3 assists, career high with 3 goals, and several games to play yet, hopefully, and he is even. He was a minus 10 in 18-19, minus 9 in 19-20, 0 right now, even in the 21 games. He was actually a plus 2 for the same Leksands IF for Swede 1. Basically, now he's in the Swedish Hockey League, so a more professional level. Hopefully he can keep moving forward. Philip Johansson, the clock is ticking on him if the Wild want to retain his rights or just let him go outright. It's the clock is ticking, and he's stepping up, so impressive so far. Jack McBain, speaking of impressive, also a point a game for Boston College. As a freshman, he struggled mightily. It took forever to even get points, and he finally wound up with 13 in 35 games. Moved up significantly last year, 21 points in 34 games. As most college hockey got to the tournaments, got to the conference tournaments, so you got regular season numbers at the very least to wrap up before the whole COVID shutdown. But McBain continues to get better and better. 20 years of age. He's about to turn 21 on Jan 6th. Watch out for that guy. I know a lot of, you like to talk about drinking. Drink. Yeah, okay, we're happy for you. Be good now. Be good, Jack, and stay focused and keep getting better like you've been. Big son of a gun at 6'4", 205. Could be a nice bottom 6 power forward type center for the Wild moving forward. Plus 8 so far on the year in Boston College. And again, like I said, a point a game thus far. 2 goals, 4 assists. Nice start for Big Jack. The big lumberjack McBain. Okay, sorry. One of my favorites, Alexander Hovanov, hasn't done jack crap so far in the KHL. Yeah, the Kazan Akbars. Nothing. He's got 4 penalty minutes and he's a plus 2. He was spectacular in the Q, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Absolutely spectacular for them. Last year with 99 points, he would have gotten 100 because things would have kept going for another couple of weeks there. It was only early March. He would have gotten well over 100 points in the Q, which would have been so cool. Hasn't done anything so far in the KHL, and it sounds like he just doesn't get along with coaches in a lot of ways. He struggles with coaches. He had some minutes with Torchetti, but things kind of came around and got better. Torchetti, of course, in the past, in Moncton, the Moncton Wildcats. And Torchetti was able to coach him, and I guess similar things are happening in the KHL with Kazan Akbars. 7 games and nothing. Again, just a plus 2 and 4 penalty minutes, unfortunately. Again, adjusting to the professional level, and my fears would be he'd have similar type of numbers in the AHL, which is a bummer. Hopefully he can adjust to the professional league sooner rather than later. The AHL isn't as good as the KHL. It's like 3rd or 4th, something like that, I'd probably say. AHL is pretty good, but it's not as good as the KHL. That place is tough, very tough place, and doggone it, hopefully Hovanov can get things moving. And of course, Connor DeWare, he's an AHL player already. He was all right. He didn't translate spectacularly from the Everett Silvertips. It's not like his numbers were unbelievable, but 81 points in 59 games is still pretty good. 36 goals, only 6 goals, 13 assists for 19 points last year for the Iowa Wild. Most likely will be right back there again at age 21. Still got a long way to go. He will certainly be in the training camp, though, regardless of how things go. Simon Johansson in the Swedish Hockey League has 4 points thus far in 19 games this year. So at least there's been some hockey, and we can finally catch up on the prospects a bit. I apologize for being not really talking about the prospects as much. Things had been shut down, and then boom, all of a sudden things got going, and I'm happy about that. Damien Giroux, who's also an AHL guy, very likely a French-Canadian. I would have to say he looks French-Canadian, like Pascal Dupuis in a big way. We'll see. 75 points last year in the OHL. He stayed healthy for the most part. Sorry, and yes, he'll be in training camp. That's why you're seeing Minnesota Wild statistics unavailable for him. And I will cite hockeydatabase.com, of course, for a lot of this information because, Sean Boudreas has been reacquired, thankfully. And, of course, he was very solid for Cape Breton Screaming Eagles. And thank you again, Derek Felska, for sending me that shirt. I'll always remember that. Cape Breton Screaming Eagles. They're screaming, boy. Eagles like to scream. I guess they do, but he has been reacquired. So he's back with the Wild organization again, as they like to call it. Or should we call it the Grapevine? Sam Henches has been outstanding as well. He's had some big moments. He started off kind of quiet and then just took off a bit. 4 goals, 3 assists in 9 games for St. Cloud State. And St. Cloud is back to competing again. They had pardon the phrase, I was about to say, they had a bad season last year. It was disappointing. First year with the new coach, they were good. And then the next year, not so much. They really dropped off. And now this year, significantly better. Again, St. Cloud State Huskies back at it again from New Brighton. Sam Henches is performing. A lot of people call him Henkes. It is Henches because, well, think about it. The vice president of operations for Maple Grove Boston Scientific, his name was Dale Henches, and it's spelled the same. I think they'd pronounce it correctly if he's the vice president of operations. So now he's the vice president of Arden Hills. So unfortunately, maybe there is relation between Sam and Dale. I would not be surprised if he's his uncle or something like that. Would not be surprised at all, actually. Sounds about right. New Bergton, right? As sometimes they mess those up. Ivan Ladnia, he's been in the KHL and performing. How about that for Dynamo? For Dynamo, he's been dynamite. No, he's not performing that well. He's getting points, but not performing that well. He's played in 26 games already. Ivan Ladnia in the KHL, 7 points, 1 goal, 6 assists. Not spectacular numbers, but numbers. I mean, I don't know. I expect about the same in the AHL. I remember 6 games a couple of years ago. He didn't do squat. That's why they sent him back to the OHL. And they said, go kick butt in the OHL. Go dominate. And he didn't. He didn't dominate. He's just decent. And it's unfortunate. He was the highest pick for the Wild in 2017, 85th overall. Mason Shaw has been ACL-ridden the last few years. He came back last year when he had the ACL late the year before. For the 3rd ACL for the poor son of a gun. Oh, God, I feel bad for Mason Shaw. He's had 3 ACLs over his young hockey career. 6 points last year in only the 17 games. Again, recovering from that ACL, coming back during the course of the season. Coming back midstream last year. And he's going to be in training camp, and he's healthy enough to skate and play again, hopefully, God willing. Bryce Misley, I'm a big fan. Hoping for the best there. Calgary, Alberta native. His father follows Brave the Wild on Twitter, at Brave the Wild. No points so far in 3 games in his senior year for the Hockey East University of Vermont. Hopefully they have some nice syrup there. But that Vermont maple syrup, yep, classic. I know I'm really weird. I am weird. I'm sorry. But so far, no points. Come on, Bryce. Rooting for you, buddy. Rooting for you. He had 10 points last year. After another slow start, he got things rolling a bit during the course of time. It's just not a very good program right now, unfortunately. They did make the tournament back in 2009. And have vanished off the face of the planet ever since. Again, that would be the NCAA hockey tournament. For those of you wondering what the heck I'm talking about. 6'1" center, left shot center for the University of Vermont. I am rooting for him. I am rooting for you, Bryce. I'm hoping for the best there. 2017 entry draft. Jake Golden, again, another guy who's been in juniors forever and nothing's happened since. 27 points last year in 48 games. Andrei Svetlikov, who has obviously been in the KHL forever and ever and ever, and he's doing kind of good, actually. Kinda. I can't believe it. 36 games. They must have just said, screw this COVID thing. 36 games. He's doing okay. You know, he's just one of those bottom 6 kind of guys. Kind of gritty. Doesn't score a whole lot. That's basically what he is. He's out there and he plays, and he sometimes he's okay, sometimes he's not. He's about a third of a point a game. He's one of those kind of guys. Maybe a point every other game, a point every 3 games kind of guy, and that's about it. He'll get a couple penalty minutes, but the signs of him being a solid defensive player are he's always been a plus. He has always been a plus in the plus minus. He's never been a minus, so that's good. And he's had some solid playoffs back in 18-19. He had 8 points and didn't have anything last year before COVID shut things down in 3 games in the postseason for the KHL. 24 years of age. I don't think Svetlikov will play in the NHL. We'll see. Nick Swaney's a guy that I think has a legitimate shot at playing the NHL. He's a senior for Duluth. He is absolutely dominating. He had a very solid year last year. He had 15 goals as a sophomore. they had won back-to-back national championships at that stage, or they won their second straight national championship, and last year never finished. Maybe they would have three-peated. I don't think so. Who knows? Maybe it would have been Denver again. Yuck. I don't even want to think about it. Which was the Gophers. Gophers had a small shot at making the tournament. They had to win the Big Ten tournament to get there, where this year the Gophers are legitimately ranked because they haven't been screwing around and losing to, I don't even know. They haven't been losing to these like unknown teams out there, and you don't mess around with teams like the Sun Devils either. You just don't do that. I don't even want to remember some of those games. It was so depressing. It was so freaking depressing. St. Lawrence, teams like that. It was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing losing to St. Lawrence? You're never going to win anything. You're never going to get a good rank when you're losing to teams that are like, they're not factors. That'd be like getting beat by the University of Vermont. Please forgive me, Bryce Misley. But if you lose to a team like that, you're never going to get ranked, positively. So that's the way it is. Swaney, though, back to Swaney. I apologize as they try to win their third out of 3 finishes in a row. 12 points in 9 games. Swaney's been putting up the numbers. 9 assists, 3 goals so far. He's a +4, and he's only got 6 penalty minutes. He really stays away from the penalty box, so it's already tied with the career high as a freshman, which is kind of funny. It didn't happen. Only took 9 games to get there, which is funny. But Swaney definitely taking a leadership role with the University of Minnesota Duluth. He's been there for all the glory years. He's been fantastic, and he just continues to be great. Might be a nice winner type of guy on the Minnesota Wild someday, at least Iowa. Looking forward to see how he performs in Iowa, and you go from there. Brandon Deheim, you're going further and further back now. Yep, and he's in the AHL, and he was okay last year. He was solid with Providence, had a good junior year, and came to Iowa. Did this and that. Dmitry Sokolov, he didn't go to the KHL. I don't know how he would play in the KHL. That's the scary part. He was kind of in and out of Iowa in the ECHL for a short time last year, but mostly with Iowa. Still had 15 goals in 41 games. Not a great overall run, though, for him, because we got to continue to wait, this and that. So that kind of is the end of all the prospects at this stage. Wish Ryan O'Rourke made the Canadian team, but you know how hard that would be to make the Canadian team. He was actually really close. Really looking forward to what Ryan O'Rourke continues to do. He's a very competitive, tough guy, and I think he could be one of the captain candidates in the future going forward. Talk is that it's going to be Zach Parise. A lot of people believe Zach Parise is going to be the captain of the Wild going forward. Okay, I guess, but we'll see. It's not a done deal yet, but talk is that is who it is. So I guess they're not going to trade him anytime super duper soon. Should we dive in? Should we dive into some of the conversations? Before I go to Twitter, I'm going to go to some of the texts and Facebook, because I try to kind of go that direction as well. Because it's been a little quiet, and I certainly don't blame anybody, and I thank Derek Velska so freaking much for helping out with this when he does. It's awesome. He says, let's see, where is it? Yep, and he added one yesterday, which is real nice. He was saying how, got a question for the Minnesota Wild on your mind? Ask Brave the Wild, just tag your question, hashtag BTWMN, and fire away. Thank you so much. Brent Jacobs, I just called him Brent Jacobs and Derek Felska. He says, with World Juniors in full swing and NHL training camps about to open soon, do you have any Minnesota Wild questions on your mind? Ask Brave the Wild, just tag your questions. Yep. So we'll get back to that in a second. I think there's some more hiding under there. A lot of people didn't hashtag it. Let's get to the texts first. Tom Holden from Plymouth. I hope he listens, but I asked him, do you have any questions so I could kind of have a conversation on the air with it. He was saying his comments going into the season were very important to let the young prospects play. I don't care who sits. Playing to be average must end. I agree. Also, the upcoming expansion draft, it's critical to not give away talent again. I think Guerin will be very smart about it. I think so, too. And a lot of teams are going to be a little bit wiser. Vegas really, they fleeced team after team after team throughout the whole thing. They really fleeced team after team, and that's why they became almost a dynasty. They were pretty close to being one. They almost won the Cup their first year, but then Washington ran them over. Then the second year, they were beating the Sharks, and I don't know what the hell happened. They choked that away. And then last year, they were doing absolutely fantastic, and then for some reason, they just stopped scoring against Dallas. They whooped Dallas's butt early on, and then screwed around with them. I don't know. It was really a bummer. They just stopped scoring. It was weird. I don't know, man. Hudobin, I guess. Woohoo. Tom Holden continues, says, I really believe that Guerin is and will continue to make this a better franchise. I think so too. What can possibly be done about the cap recapture penalty? As it stands now, the franchise is screwed. Yeah, we're pretty much stuck with them. I mean, it's not going to be as bad as it could have been, most likely in most scenarios. The possibility of being like a $40 million cap hit, the odds of that happening are extremely slim. But again, that would be like board up the franchise. You'd have to pretty much cut everybody and have only minor league players on the roster. You wouldn't board up the franchise, but it would be... I don't even know what you'd be able to do. You'd have to cut just about everybody, though. Yeah. It would be pretty messed up. Man, that would be a tough situation, wouldn't it? It would be a minor league roster in a lot of ways if you had $40 million over the cap. That'd be... I can't even imagine how that would work, actually. It's pretty wild, isn't it? Pun intended, I guess. Might take a miracle, but maybe both Parise and Suter can actually continue to play decent hockey for 5 more years, or the hockey gods will show mercy and change the cap recapture penalty. Unfortunately, I doubt they will, but I guess you never know. I guess you never know. It's scary to imagine, but I don't think we'll get the absolute DEFCON 1 scenario. I don't think that'll happen, but I guess you never really do know. Let's see, Brent Jacobson. That's where the Brent Jacobson part came in. He says, I thought of one or two, about the questions. With Stalock, who knows how long? Out who knows how long? Who is likely to be the number one goalie? That'd be Cam Talbot. Yep, he's going to be the number one goalie for the Minnesota Wild for probably the whole season. Stalock, he's mostly a backup anyway, and Talbot was pretty much thought of to be the starter. But I suppose you always never know. I mean, who would have thought Stalock was going to overtake Dubnyk last year until things got really kind of weird? He says, Brent Jacobson says, where do you see Kaprizov fitting in? Well, I do see him fitting in the top 6 on the left side. Absolutely. He's going to be in the top 6. He'll be on the left wing. Of course, quite possibly the top line right away to get things rolling. And I wouldn't be surprised. But he'll be top 6 at the very least. Second line, first line, depending on how things roll. Fiala is going to be on the right wing for the top line for sure. And after that, I guess it's Marcus Johansson is going to be your top line center. This and that. And Kaprizov most likely the left wing on that top line. That's a pretty talented line. Second line, don't be surprised if Marco Rossi somehow does make the team. Because I know that conversation pops up here shortly. At Brave the Wild. Let's see if there's one more on Facebook. No, nobody did respond. Unfortunately, Jameson Chase Carlson did not respond. So maybe he's just too busy. Kurt didn't. Otherwise, I'll just save those for the next show or something. Or if somehow miraculously they pop up before I'm done. Shoot. But it is what it is. So, Derek Felska says, with a compressed schedule, where you may see 4 games in 4 days, does that benefit the Wild, who are now a little younger and have more options at center? Sure. I mean, it benefits them in a sense. I mean, we are younger, and, well, there may be more and more reason to have a Marco Rossi on the roster, I suppose. This and that. I don't think it'll ever be that tight, will it, though? Will the schedule be that tight? I hope not. It looks like mostly it is kind of a back and forth. Like, we stay in the same city mostly, but a bit of a back and forth here and there. But I suppose it could happen with COVID, this and that, if there's, whole teams shut down, which could happen. But I kind of like how they're doing it. If you're so worried about COVID-19, which I'm kind of, let's just say I'm not as worried about it as some people. I'm kind of like Eric Stahl. It looks like they split them up pretty nicely. It's back to back. It's like, see, like right now, for example, March. The first is in Vegas. The second is off. Third, Vegas again. And then you have Arizona. Oh, I guess, yep, Arizona back to back in Arizona on the 5th and 6th. And then you play Vegas on the 8th. So that's 3 and 4. So, yeah, that's kind of busy. And then you play Vegas again 2 days later again in the XL Energy Center, Arizona. Day off, Arizona, then 3 days off. That must be a bye or something. I guess there's a couple of byes. Then you play Colorado, 18th and 20th, Anaheim 22nd, Anaheim 24th, both at home in Minnesota anyway. Then you play the Sharks on the 29th and 31st in San Jose. It's a possibility, but it looks mostly like you're just getting back-to-backs, and maybe 3 out of 4. So I don't think it'll be 4 and 4. Maybe it was worded different, like 4 games in 5 days or 4 games in 6 days, that type of thing. But with the younger group, I would hope it can benefit the Wild. for the most part. I mean, it's something to think about, but there are going to be some younger players on the roster. There's going to be some older players, obviously, that you can't get rid of. Suter, Parisi, Zuccarello, if he ever comes back. We'll see how long he's going to be out with the arm. But his contract's not going away. His contract's not going to go away. That's the nice part, isn't it? Derek Felsker continues. At Brave the Wild again. Says, and Derek Felsker, at Crease and Assist. He writes for Crease and Assist. So that is the name of his page. And he writes on the Sports Daily. That's where the Crease and Assist blog can be found. Just simply look him up, look up Crease and Assist, Google or whatever. You'll find it right away. Wrote a very cool article involving Six fans, and I was one of them. A couple of us are podcasters, some of us are writers. And then there's Brian Felska. I think that's his dad. That's my guess. Either his dad or his uncle. I didn't ask, and I probably should have. What the heck? I'm sorry, Derek. But most likely, because he talked about growing up in the 50s and 60s. So, yeah, Derek's not that old, and I'm not that old. So, obviously, it's a previous generation to us Gen X's that love the NES and stuff. Right, Derek? We love that Nintendo, the old Nintendo. But what an awesome article. It's 3 parts. 3 different parts about, talking about the upcoming season and how we think the Wild will finish and how Garen's handling things, and very, very worthwhile. 3 different parts. It'll take you a little time, so maybe you can read one of them at a time, here and there. I'm sure Derek doesn't expect you to read all 3 of them at once. That's why I split it up. That's the whole point. Read them maybe one day at a time, or whatever. If you feel like reading 2 in one day, this and that, keep coming back to it. But Derek obviously does a great job, and I'm talking about also the rebranding of the Wild and having North Star colors and this and that, and I don't think that's a dumb idea at all. Derek talked about that back around Thanksgiving on the Crease and Assist blog. Absolutely good idea. 100% I agree with that. The Wild should do a rebrand of it, and why not? Why the hell not? I mean, it's been mediocre. Good's not good enough. Let's be great. And let's have something fascinating. I love that hat. It's looking right at me now, as it wasn't looking at me in the previous segments. It's looking right at me right now, as I turn around anyway. It's staring at the back of my head. Ooh, scary stuff. But yes, it's a white hat. The bill is green and yellow, like the North Stars. For some reason, State of Hoppy, the Scott over there on the soda pot, hates green and gold because he hates the Packers. Well, that was one of the only reasons I like the Packers, because their colors are cool, because they look like the North Stars. So I guess my thought process is a little bit the opposite there. I love the North Stars, damn it. And I almost like the Packers because of that back in the old days. I like the uniforms. I hate the Packers, but I like the uniforms because of green and gold. So stop hating those 2 colors, damn it. Just in case he's listening, but maybe they're too good for me over there. I don't know. Let's get to what Derek had to say as I continue to babble and babble and babble. But I guess that's just part of the game. Hopefully it was at least entertaining conversation for you. Philip Johansson recently scored 2 goals in a game. Has hell frozen over? Or do the Minnesota Wild have a viable NHL defensive prospect now? 3 goals, 6 points in 21 games. Like, wow, I can't believe it. I hope so. It's a nice little stretch, and at least there's hope. He's played pretty good. He has played pretty good. Maybe hell has frozen over. I don't know. It felt like it, didn't it? Right after, oh my, what was it like? Late on December 23rd, I think everything froze over. That's why the streets are still kind of icy and slippery all over the Twin Cities here. Probably the same there in western Wisconsin, where Derek lives and teaches. That's where he's a teacher there. He looks great. Philip Johansson looks great in the last couple of games here, and hopefully this continues. I hope so. I mean, I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. That type of thing. Again, like I was saying, there's decision time coming up for him. So like, are we going to retain his right or just kind of let him go? That type of thing. I did compensation because he's a failed pick, that type of thing. We'll see. It's going to be decision time coming up. Jay Bushy, welcome back to the show, Jay. Great to hear from you. He says, do you think Rossi stays with the team after his 6-game tryout? If he's not going to get a place as a number 1 or number 2 center, send me back to Europe. Yeah, absolutely. I think if I agree with that thought process about, I mean, if he stays in Minnesota, he'll be a number 2 center. I think he'll be the number 2 center. He's not going to get the number 1, I don't think, unless he's just absolutely insane. I don't know if he's ready for that yet. But number 2 is a distinct possibility. He could be the second-line center, and then you move Jewel down to third, and your fourth-line center is, who knows? Is it going to be Is it going to be Victor Rask? Is it going to be Nico Sturm? Is it going to be... you still have Nick Bonino. So, yeah, that's the other guy. So it'll probably be Nick Bonino at that point, I'm thinking. And then Sturm will be on the wing for the third line, or the fourth line. It'll be on the left wing, this and that. But Jewel will at least be the third line center. So at least we have a number of center options. But, yeah, like 19 of them are third or fourth line. They're bottom six centers. Unfortunately, that's the crappy part. Centers or wingers, when they're not playing center, they play on the wing of the side they can shoot, that type of thing. At least most of the time, I guess. Since we have like 19 left shot players, but some of them play on the right side. That's the reason for my thinking there. Hashtag PTWMN. Unfortunately, most of these are from earlier, like October and all the way back to March. Yeah, that's when he first really got things going to Derek. But May and all those other months, September, so much fun with these questions. Unfortunately, I'm still picking up the old ones, which is kind of a bummer. January 22nd. What do you mean January 22nd? Did I know Derek that long ago? I guess I must have, huh? I guess I first got to know him back in the 20s. I thought it was in March. No, it wasn't March. It was January. It was January, my bad. So there might be some in the notifications real quick, other than the hashtag. Let's see if there's a little back and forth. Because I know the notifications get kind of busy sometimes. Oh yeah, Norm Green Still Sucks podcast. You have a conversation about Minnesota sports history, basically. Pretty cool stuff. Very, very nice. I'm a subscriber to it. They joined in Christmas Day. They recorded it a few weeks earlier. But yeah, and we had a conversation back and forth. He likes my show, I like his. Yep, and it's a couple guys on there talking about Minnesota sports history. There was the positives and the negatives, but they call it Norm Green Still Sucks, S-U-X podcast. Look it up. Of course, North Star colors, so maybe State of Hoppy won't like it because it's got North Star colors. Come on, Hoppy, stop it, man. Stop hating. Sig Wild Sneak Peek Edition. Yep, part 3 of 3. Yep, there it was from Crease and Assist. Of course, that was retweeted. I think that's it. Bummer. It is what it is, though. Some people, it was Christmas week, and people probably didn't want to interact. And, we'll get to that when the thing starts. When the season starts, you'll have more things to talk about, I would hope. Rob Klein joined on board. Thank you very much. I always appreciate that. Let's see if there's any back and forth from earlier. I thought there was. Got a number of followers jumping on board this past month, which is really nice. Yep, joining the fantasy hockey, this and that. We'll see how things go there. Oilers live broadcast. That's cool. I think... Shoot, most of it's kind of conversation about fantasy hockey. Pat Micheletti's going to be in it. Pat Micheletti and Brandon Molesky. Wow, KFAN, this and that. Pat Micheletti's on Beyond the Pod. And, of course, he's on the mural for the Gophers and played a couple games for the North Stars before injuring his knee, unfortunately. That's a bummer. Pretty cool, though. Brandon Molesky. Wild Brazil also joined. Wild Brazil. Yeah, Brazil, South America. Kind of cool to think about that. Brazil hockey. Oh, man. As long as they have Kevin Fiala. I think that's it. Yeah, it's going back too far now. Mostly just kind of having fun conversations about fantasy hockey and such. Yep, pretty cool, though. Okay, so I think we'll wrap things up. I'm babbling now, and I apologize. So with that said, thanks again always for listening. Hopefully the Minnesota Wild season is heading in the more of the positive direction. And Marco Rossi's ready to go. Other than that, I have a ton of faith in Bill Guerin and where things go forward. I expect another trade or two during the course of the season by trade deadline, sending guys out or bringing guys in, which obviously you're probably going to be doing a bit of both. Bonino, Marcus Johansson, maybe bringing in an interesting piece or making another significant move like Greenway on his way out, Dumba on his way out, quite possibly, though that one's a little bit more far-fetched at the moment, but it's a strong possibility. It's a strong possibility, actually. I shouldn't say that. It's far-fetched with, of course, too much money tied in the cap, and you have Kalen Addison in the wings. And the better Kalen Addison does, the more likely somebody's going to get traded, because Kalen Addison is not going to be on the third pair. He's going to be on the second pair, at the very least, going forward for the Minnesota Wild when it comes to right-shot defensemen. So it just kind of is what it is. And Louis Belpedio, I think, absolutely can fit right in on the third pairing versus Greg Patterin or Brad Hunt playing out of position, which he's been doing the last year and a half. So that's how that goes. With that said, again, can't wait for hockey to come back. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy Hockey New Year. Happy everything. God bless all of you. Again, please do write a positive rating on iTunes or Stitcher if you could. iTunes/Apple Podcast is what it really is. I'm not sure if you can write positive ratings on Podaman or Google Podcasts or Amazon Music. This and that. Maybe Amazon Music you can. I don't know if people do that. But if any of these, if you could write a positive feedback for Brave the Wild, I'd greatly appreciate it. A 5-star rating. Tell me what you like, even something you'd like to see improved, this and that. And you can always email me at paladinolive@yahoo.com as well. That'll be in the show description. Facebook.com/bravethewild.minnesota. Facebook.com/MNW Prospects. at MNW Prospects for the Twitter account. Of course, again, Gone Puck Wild. I write for that. Very, very proud to write for Gone Puck Wild. And, of course, MNW Prospects, this and that. Thank you guys always for being a part of the show. Derek Felska, always great guy. Soda Pod. Sound the Foghorn Pod. Locked on Wild. Zeke Boyott got that going. He's also part of the Sound the Foghorn. Oh, Lord. That type of thing. Yeah, Norm still sucks. Pretty cool stuff. With that said, God bless all of you. I apologize if I didn't mention someone out there. I'll get to you on the next show, I guess. God bless all of you, and again, hope to hear from you. One final thing, if you want to send an audio submission, simply record it like treat it like a phone call. Open any free voice recording application that you might have on your cell phone, smart device, whatever the heck. Hit record, open it, hit record, treat it like a phone call, hit stop, save it, and share/send it to paladinolive@yahoo.com, paladinolive@yahoo.com. All of these different links will be in the show description. With that said, let's go wild. Let's get ready to roll. And most of all, great to have NHL Center Ice shining and flashing in the background again.